Chapter 288. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The people of the Tang family left. Gu Chengfeng also left under the escort of eunuch Qin. Empress Dowager Zhuang took Gu Jiao back to Rinshou Palace. Gu Jiao was dressed in a small black dress. She crawled into cabinets and ran away, making her body dirty. Empress Dowager Zhuang took Gu Jiao to the bathing pool in Rinshou Palace to freshen up. Although she knew that Gu Jiao didn't like strangers to serve her, the pool was too big. There were some things that she hadn't used before. Empress Dowager Zhuang still arranged for two clever palace maids to serve her. It was Gu Jiao's first time soaking in the palace pool. It felt strange and fresh. The bright and spacious palace hall was surrounded by golden dragon pillars. The bathing pool was in the middle. There were gauze curtains on all sides. The scene inside was faintly discernible. Outside the gauze curtains, there were 4 candlesticks in the 4 corners. From top to bottom, the number of candlesticks increased with each floor. There was no fire inside the gauze curtains. Instead, the floor and the walls of the bathing pool were inlaid with very large luminous pearls. The pool was sprinkled with freshly picked petals. Each petal exuded a strong fragrance. Gu Jiao soaked her entire body under the petals. Only her small round head was exposed. The palace maid knelt by the pool and said to her, "Miss, this servant will comb your hair." "Oh." Gu Jiao nodded. It was rare that she didn't refuse a stranger's approach. The palace maid took a wooden comb and dipped it in fragrant essential oil. She let down Gu Jiao's long hair that was coiled on top of her head. Her movements were very gentle, as if she didn't dare to break a single strand of Gu Jiao's hair. Gu Jiao closed her eyes in enjoyment. She didn't even comb her own hair so gently. The hair was combed until it was soft and shiny. Then the palace maid took out soap and washed Gu Jiao. This soap was not the ordinary soap on the market. It was added with a lot of spices. It was directly made into a smell that ordinary people couldn't afford. It was so comfortable that Gu Jiao almost fell asleep. By the time Gu Jiao finished bathing, it was already more than an hour later. She was so busy catching the murderer that the food she had for dinner had already been digested. Her stomach was rumbling with hunger. She came out wearing a light purple ice silk nightgown. This nightgown was not Empress Dowager Zhuang's nightgown. It was suitable for her age. Empress Dowager Zhuang watched her come out of the candlelight surrounded by palace maids. She was in a trance. "Great aunt." Gu Jiao stepped forward. Empress Dowager Zhuang returned to her senses and pointed to the stool beside her. "Sit down and eat something." Gu Jiao happened to be hungry. Looking at the dazzling array of food on the table, he almost couldn't hold back his saliva. She blinked and sat down. "Great aunt, how did you know I was hungry?" Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. "Humph, is it hard to guess with your small belly?" Gu Jiao happily curved her lips. She picked up the chopsticks and ate a delicious meal. The imperial palace was very strict with eating. Usually there were people who served the food. You could eat whatever you picked up and only eat a few bites of each dish. Empress Dowager Zhuang had strictly followed the rules for so many years. However, Gu Jiao was here, so she still removed the servants who served the meal. This was something that Gu Jiao didn't know. "Are you full?" Empress Dowager Zhuang asked Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao put down her chopsticks and burped. "I'm full." Empress Dowager Zhuang ordered a cup of hawthorn flower tea to aid digestion and calm the nerves. Gu Jiao held the flower tea and asked, "Great aunt, why did you suddenly leave the palace?" Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. "Can't I just stroll around?" Gu Jiao said, "Great aunt, do you want to play cards?" Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyebrows jumped. "Nonsense. How could Ijia be going to play cards?" Ijia obviously just came back from playing cards. Empress Dowager Zhuang quickly shifted the blame away from herself. "You have the nerve to ask me why I left the palace. Ijia should ask you what happened. Why did you go to Tang Manor in the middle of the night?" Gu Jiao glanced at her, lowered her head, and counted her fingers. "To catch the murderer." Empress Dowager Zhuang gasped. "What murderer did you catch? You took him to Marshal's mansion?" Gu Jiao said, Someone wanted to kill Tang Ming and frame Gu Changqing. Empress Dowager Zhuang knew Tang Ming. He was Tang Yueshan's nephew and was quite handsome. Gu Changqing. Empress Dowager Zhuang frowned. This name was a bit familiar, but she couldn't remember it. Empress Dowager Zhuang's recovered memories were mostly related to Gu Jiao and little Jing Kong. Gu Changqing came too rarely, so she couldn't remember him. Gu Jiao saw Empress Dowager Zhuang's confused face. She thought for a moment and said, "It was his first time playing cards, and he won a lot of money from me." Empress Dowager Zhuang's face darkened. There was an image. This matter was complicated to describe, but Empress Dowager Zhuang had already heard some rumors. After all, the commotion at the military camp was so big. How could she not know that Tang Ming's arm had been chopped off by a military officer of Marquis Ding and Manor? But she was the same as the other soldiers. She believed that the military officer was fighting for justice for the original Gu family soldiers. Marquis Ding and Manor was the emperor's power. Naturally, she couldn't stand up for the other party. Moreover, the other party had indeed gone too far. Tang Ming's punishment was unfair, but his crime didn't warrant having his arm cut off. He used the name of a martial arts competition to hurt Tang Ming. No matter how she looked at it, there was no way to be kind. It wasn't for the Gu family soldiers. Gu Jiao hesitated for a moment, but still told the truth. Tang Ming bullied Yan. He took Yan away and locked him up. We searched for half a night before we found him. It was Gu Changqing who found him. He was just one step away. What? Gu Jiao didn't say anything else. But who was Empress Dowager Zhuang? She had eaten more salt than other people had eaten rice. How could she not have guessed what had happened? Empress Dowager Zhuang only had one request for Gu Yan. That was to live. It could be seen that this child was weak. Encountering this sort of thing was equivalent to taking away half of his life. Empress Dowager Zhuang's expression sank. Only one arm was cut off. Gu Jiao blinked. I also taught him a lesson. Tang Yueshan found out, so he wanted to capture me. Empress Dowager Zhuang expressed her suspicion. He only captured you for this? I think he just wanted to kill you. That was because I heard his secret. But in reality, it wasn't that different. Tang Yueshan wouldn't have let her go whether she heard the secret or not. That night, Gu Jiao and Empress Dowager Zhuang chatted for a long time. Gu Jiao was not someone who was good at communicating with others. She didn't speak much. Normally, if she knew something, she would be too lazy to speak. But her grand-aunt had this kind of ability. She was able to make her put down the defenses in her heart, and the awkwardness of her self-esteem. She was also able to be a little loudspeaker spirit for once. When Eunuch Qin returned to Rinshou Palace to report, Gu Jiao had already fallen asleep on Empress Dowager Zhuang's phoenix bed. Her small face was facing Empress Dowager Zhuang. Her cheeks were pressed and her small mouth was slightly open. Crystal clear saliva flowed out. Empress Dowager Zhuang wiped her saliva and gently pulled the quilt to cover her. She picked up one of her hands and sighed. It's cut again. Empress Dowager. Eunuch Qin bowed in a low voice. The person has been sent. Empress Dowager Zhuang faintly hummed. Eunuch Qin took the wound medicine and handed it to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang's fingertips smeared a little and carefully rubbed the medicine on Gu Jiao's palm where the reins were abraded. Go and send a message to Bishui Ali. Tell that boy not to wait. Jiao Jiao will rest here tonight. Gu Jiao was too hot. In her sleep, she kicked off the quilt discontentedly. Empress Dowager Zhuang carefully covered her. Eunuch Qin suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at? Empress Dowager Zhuang asked in a low voice. Eunuch Qin said with joy. This old servant has not seen Empress Dowager so humane for a long time. It seems that after you lost your memory, you found many things that were lost in the past. Things that were lost in the past. Empress Dowager Zhuang murmured. Eunuch Qin smiled and said. Yes, the last time you were so humane was when Princess Ning and was by your side. Empress Dowager Zhuang's expression turned cold when he mentioned Princess Ningen. Eunuch Qin realized that he had said something wrong and quickly lowered his head. This servant misspoke. Empress Dowager Zhuang lowered her eyes and stroked Gu Jiao's fingers. She said lightly, You can leave. Eunuch Qin responded. Yes, this servant will go to Bishui Alley. Wait. Empress Dowager Zhuang stopped him. Eunuch Qin turned around. Empress Dowager, do you have any other orders? Empress Dowager Zhuang said. Jia remembers that there are many masks in the storehouse? Eunuch Qin said. Yes, does Empress Dowager want masks? Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at the sleeping Gu Jiao and said, Bring them all. Give them to the princess. Eunuch Qin's whole body shook. Empress Dowager Zhuang paused. Let Jiao Jiao choose tomorrow morning. Eunuch Qin secretly sighed. Yes. After Tang Yueshan bid farewell to Empress Dowager Zhuang, he immediately went to catch Gu Changqing. In the end, he was told that Gu Changqing had been in the barracks the whole time. Tang Yueshan quickly rushed back to the barracks and looked in disbelief at Gu Changqing, who was quietly waiting outside the torture chamber, where the fire had just been extinguished. Gu Changqing was still handcuffed and shackled, and there was no trace of him escaping. You didn't escape? Gu Changqing said indifferently. I have been in the barracks the whole time. I don't know where Lord Tang's words come from. Impossible. I have searched the entire barracks. You were clearly not there. You. Tang Yueshan suddenly thought of something and his eyes trembled. You were in the 18 bronze men array. That was the only place in the barracks that couldn't be searched, because entering it meant death. Tang Ming could only break through to the 12th level, let alone the other soldiers. Gu Changqing only needed to hide in the last few levels to ensure that no one could find him. Cunning, too cunning. But Tang Yueshan couldn't figure out why Gu Changqing would do this. If he had escaped to kill Tang Ming, it would make sense. But he didn't, and another assassin did. So why was he hiding in there? To play hide and seek? Gu Changqing said seriously. I was afraid that the fire would be too big and burn me to death, so I found a safe place to hide. Tang Yueshan. No matter how bad Tang Yueshan thought this reason was, it couldn't change the fact that Gu Changqing didn't escape the barracks. Tang Yueshan was full of anger, but he had nowhere to vent it. He gritted his teeth and said coldly, So what if you didn't escape this time? You'll still be executed in 3 days. In Gu Jiao's dream, Tang Yueshan let Gu Changqing go because Gu Chengfeng took the blame. But now, without Gu Chengfeng taking the blame, Gu Changqing would still be executed in 3 days. Originally, Gu Chengfeng and Gu Jiao thought that if they caught the real murderer of Tang Ming, they would be able to find the mastermind behind the impersonation of Fei Shuang and wash away the truth of Gu Changqing's prison break. Who would have thought that the mastermind would be so cunning? He didn't even show himself, but let old Master Tang do it. They wanted to remind Tang Yueshan, Hey, your big brother didn't just want to kill that bastard. He also conspired with others to kill you. But who were they to say that? Was it Gu Changqing's younger brother or sister? Or was it an assassin who had been executed by the Empress Dowager? Tang Yueshan wouldn't believe any of them. This kind of thing had to be said by someone Tang Yueshan trusted without a doubt. Tang Yueshan was a very suspicious person, which could be seen from his suspicion that Madame Tang would kill Tang Ming. The next day, Eunuch Qin came to the marshal's mansion. The Empress Dowager wants to see Lord Tang. Please come with me to the palace immediately. Tang Yueshan followed Eunuch Qin into the palace. He was an outsider and couldn't enter the harem. Empress Dowager Zhuang met him in the side hall of the throne room. Empress Dowager Zhuang sat on a chair made of yellow pear wood on the steps. She was wearing a black robe embroidered with golden phoenixes. Her expression was calm and her aura was threatening. Tang Yueshan knelt down and saluted. Greetings, Your Majesty. May Your Majesty live for thousands of years. Rise. Empress Dowager Zhuang said. Thank you, Your Majesty. Tang Yueshan stood up and looked straight ahead. Give him a seat. Empress Dowager Zhuang ordered Eunuch Qin. Eunuch Qin and a young eunuch brought a chair for Tang Yueshan and placed it in the center of the hall, facing the Empress Dowager. Sitting face to face with the Empress Dowager like this made the atmosphere a little strange. However, it was a special honor and Tang Yueshan enjoyed it very much. Empress Dowager Zhuang said majestically, You are my right-hand man. I trust you and won't beat around the bush. I called you here today because of Commandant Gu. Tang Yueshan heard this and his expression froze. Gu Changqing's incident was a big deal and the palace should have already heard about it. However, he didn't expect the Empress Dowager to ask about it. Empress Dowager Zhuang gave Eunuch Qin a look. Eunuch Qin understood and came forward with a tray. There was a carved dagger on the tray. Lord Tang, please take a look. Tang Yueshan picked up the dagger and looked at it. There was nothing special about the scabbard. However, when he pulled the blade out, he saw a word engraved where the hilt met the blade, Qing. He vaguely guessed whose dagger it was, but he didn't understand why it was in the Empress Dowager's hands. He frowned strangely. This is... Empress Dowager Zhuang's expression didn't change. I found it on the two assassins after they were dealt with last night. Tang Yueshan said. They were Gu Chongqing's men? This official knew it was them. Empress Dowager Zhuang coldly said. You've been in the army for so many years, yet you can't even see through such a clumsy framing. If they were really Gu Chongqing's men, would they carry Gu Chongqing's belongings to commit the crime? Tang Yueshan choked. If Gu Chongqing himself was the one who carried out the assassination, it was possible that he accidentally left his belongings at the scene. However, if someone else took his belongings, how could it not be framing? Empress Dowager Zhuang continued. Don't look. This official has already confirmed with the Marquis Ding and Fu. This is Commandant Gu's dagger. Also, this official heard that last night, the barracks torture chamber caught fire and almost burned Commandant Gu to death. Tang Yueshan put the dagger back on the tray. Eunuch Qin took the tray and retreated to the side. Tang Yueshan replied. Yes, but he hid in the 18 bronze men formation and was unharmed. Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes were cold. Is a mere fire worth him hiding in the formation? In this official's opinion, it's clear that someone wants to force him out. Then why didn't he capture the other party? Tang Yueshan asked. There was a reason for his suspicions. If Gu Chongqing could beat the other party, then there was no need for him to hide. But if Gu Chongqing could not defeat the other party, then the other party could also break through the array formation that he could break through. They could still force him out. Empress Dowager Zhuang calmly said. If the other party turned around and said that they came to save him and were his accomplice, what would he do? Would you believe him, or would you believe the assassin? Naturally, he would believe the assassin. Hatred had already blinded Tang Yueshan's eyes. He wouldn't believe any evidence that would be beneficial to Gu Chongqing. Tang Yueshan was choked speechless. Empress Dowager Zhuang slowly sighed. This official knows that you really want to execute Commandant Gu. Tang Yueshan clenched his fist. Doesn't he deserve to die? He harmed Ming. Empress Dowager Zhuang's cold eyes sharpened. She slapped the table. But your Ming are also harmed others. Even a top-notch expert like Tang Yueshan almost succumbed to the Empress Dowager's phoenix aura. Tang Yueshan's momentum weakened, but he was still full of unwillingness. Why do you say that, Your Majesty? Bring him in. As soon as Empress Dowager Zhuang's voice fell, two strong eunuchs escorted in a young man with unkempt hair and a dirty face. Tang Yueshan looked at him for a long time before he recognized him. Aren't you Ming Er's servant? The one called Dengu? Dengu fell to his knees. Your Majesty, please spare my life. Master, please spare my life. Tang Yueshan's face darkened. Where have you been these days? I've been looking for you everywhere. Dengu cried in fear. I heard that Commandant Gu cut off young master's arm. I ran away. Tang Yueshan frowned. Why did you run away? You're not the one who hurt him. Dengu trembled. He did not dare to say anything. I was afraid that Commandant Gu would come after me for revenge. Tang Yueshan became more and more confused. He said impatiently, Who do you think you are? He would come after you for revenge? Dengu hugged his head and curled into a ball. It was me. I drugged young Master Gu and took him out of the carriage. But I was following young Master's orders. You can't blame me, Tang Yueshan said angrily. Drugged young Master Gu? What nonsense are you talking about? Dengu cried. Young Master. Young Master kidnapped young Master Gu. He wanted to do something to young Master Gu. It was Commandant Gu who arrived in time. Boom! Tang Yueshan felt as if a bolt from the blue had struck his heart. He was stunned for a long time in disbelief. Suddenly he lifted his foot and kicked Dengu hard. Bastard! Who allowed you to slander Ming her? Empress Dowager Zhuang frowned. Eunuch Qin said sternly, Lord Tang, don't be presumptuous in front of the Empress Dowager. Tang Yueshan clenched his fist and resisted the urge to step on Eunuch Qin's head. Empress Dowager Zhuang waved her hand. Two eunuchs dragged Deng Gu'er away. Tang Yueshan trembled, and his eyes were red. No. Ming'er wouldn't do that. He's such an upright person. How could he do something so despicable? Empress Dowager Zhuang could not help but roll her eyes. Soon, she coughed softly and said in a low voice, Do you know that the young master of Marquis Ding and has a heart problem? He was humiliated by Ming, and suffered a heart attack. He hasn't woken up yet. You're Ming, only lost an arm, and you want to kill the murderer. Tang Ming's younger brother was already half dead, so how could he not want to kill Tang Ming? Tang Yueshan, you're a man. If it were you, would you be able to swallow this? Tang Yueshan's chest flipped over as he was struck by a heavy blow. He staggered a little. Now that things had progressed to this point, it was almost enough to forgive Gu Changqing. However, this matter would always be a thorn in Tang Yueshan's heart. He would be angry at Tang Ming's incompetence, but he would still blame Gu Changqing. Empress Dowager Zhuang pressed between her eyebrows and said, Do you know what I found in the assassin's clothes last night? What? Tang Yueshan asked blankly. Obviously, the blow was too big and he had no interest in the assassin. Empress Dowager Zhuang took out the powder that Gu Jiao had made early in the morning, and said without changing her expression, I found a kind of knockout powder. This kind of knockout powder can disturb a person's mind and make them do things that are not normal. I think that Ming, might have been plotted against. Tang Yueshan suddenly raised his head. The Empress Dowager was a professional at tricking people. Empress Dowager Zhuang said with a pained expression, I've seen Ming. Although he is a little arrogant, he is not a bad person. Although I have no evidence, I think that they might have wanted to put the knockout powder in Ming's medicine when they went to the marshal's mansion last night. They were so skilled at drugging him that I wondered if they had drugged Ming before. It was also to find out what happened to Ming, that I found the servant. This speculation was like a ray of sunshine after a bolt from the blue. When a person was pushed into a quagmire, he didn't have to go back to his original attic. He just had to be pulled back to the ground, and he would accept the situation gratefully. Tang Yueshan grabbed the life-saving straw and refused to fall into the quagmire again. Is it the drug? The drug? The drug, yes. It must be the drug. Ming is such a good boy. How could he do such a thing? He must have been drugged. Empress Dowager Zhuang continued. I sent someone to get Commandant Gu's water bag this morning, and found that his water was also drugged. Tang Yueshan was stunned. Empress Dowager Zhuang sighed. Commandant Gu wanted to kill Ming, but he wouldn't be stupid enough to do it in public. In the end Ming, is just a half-brother, not his life. Why would he risk his life for him? Tang Yueshan felt that what the Empress Dowager said made sense. He asked hesitantly, So he was also drugged? Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at him indifferently. Yes. Gu Changqing and Tang Ming were established at the same time. If Tang Yueshan wanted to believe one, he had to believe the other. Would Tang Yueshan believe it? The answer was yes. He would rather accept that Gu Changqing wasn't the real murderer than suspect that his son was a pervert. At this point, all of Tang Ming's hatred for Gu Changqing was gone. He only hated the person behind the scenes. He was furious. Who is it? Who instigated the relationship between the Marshal's manor and Marquis Ding and manor? Empress Dowager Zhuang pinched the spot between her eyebrows that didn't hurt and sighed. I also don't have a clue. I killed them too quickly last night, and didn't have time to interrogate them. It's also your fault. You didn't explain clearly what was going on. If it weren't for Eunuch Qin finding these things when he was digging a hole to bury the bodies, I wouldn't even be able to find these clues. Tang Yueshan also felt a wave of regret. Yes, why didn't he tell the Empress Dowager more? The Empress Dowager had found so many clues with just 2 corpses. If he had persuaded the Empress Dowager to leave them alive, wouldn't he have found out who was behind the scenes? What did it mean to be sold and still count the money? This was it. Empress Dowager Zhuang saw that she had deceived him enough. She could stop after a few more words. She waved her hand carelessly. All right, I've said all that needs to be said. What you should do is up to you. If you really want to kill Commandant Gu, I won't stop you. After all, he's one of the Emperor's people. Killing him isn't a pity. It wasn't a pity, but when he thought that doing so would be exactly what the person behind the scenes wanted, Tang Yueshan couldn't bear this grievance. After causing his Ming, to be like this, how could he let the other party succeed? Was he stupid? Haha, not only would he not kill Gu Changqing, when the limelight was over, he would promote Gu Changqing. He wanted to show the person behind the scenes that he, Tang Yueshan, wasn't a fool. After the news that Gu Changqing was about to be executed came out, the old duke didn't sleep a wink all night. Finally, it was dawn. He didn't even have time to eat breakfast before he rushed to the palace to see the emperor. The emperor knew why he came. The emperor was also very melancholy. If this happened anywhere else, he might have a way to deal with it. However, this was the military camp. Everything was done strictly according to military rules. Even the emperor and the empress dowager couldn't interfere. Tang Yueshan didn't arrest Gu Changqing for cutting off Tang Ming's arm. He arrested him for breaking out of prison in the middle of the night and becoming a deserter. This was a capital offense, regardless of official rank. Not to mention that he killed 2 innocent soldiers. Your Majesty, my grandson was wrongly accused. There must be more to this than meets the eye. Gu Changqing didn't say a word to the old duke. The old duke didn't know that an assassin had come, nor did he know that Gu Changqing had gone to visit Gu Yan. However, the old duke believed that Gu Changqing wouldn't kill the innocent, and definitely wouldn't become a deserter. The emperor sighed. Why wouldn't I want to save him? However, all the evidence is against him, and he admitted it himself. This was the key point. Gu Changqing admitted that he had broken out of prison. Even if he was the emperor, he couldn't act recklessly. The emperor gritted his teeth. If there's no other way, I will allow you to bring your men of sacrifice to the execution ground. However, this way, Gu Changqing could no longer live under the sun. He couldn't inherit the marquis estate. What was the difference between this and strangling someone? The old duke slumped to the ground in defeat. Suddenly, Eunuch Wei rushed in. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Something big has happened. Military officer Gui. The old duke's face paled. What happened to Changqing? Eunuch Wei smiled. He's been acquitted. The emperor. The old duke. Meanwhile, Empress Dowager Zhuang couldn't wait to return to Rinshou Palace after finishing today's hoodwinking. Jiao Jiao, it's done. Where's Ijia's sugar eggs? Eunuch Qin, who was following behind Empress Dowager Zhuang, almost stumbled and fell. You've been trying to persuade me the whole morning, just for a bowl of sugar eggs? You're the Empress Dowager. Can't you be a little more mature? It's done. Gu Jiao curved her lips and came out of the small kitchen with a bowl of sugar eggs. Empress Dowager Zhuang rubbed her hands and looked at her sugar eggs expectantly. Jiao Jiao said that she would add 2 more spoonfuls of sugar and 2 more eggs. 2 spoonfuls of sugar. Can you imagine? Empress Dowager Zhuang slurped her lips and looked at the big bowl that Gu Jiao put on the table. In just a second, her face darkened. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Didn't you say you'd add 2 more spoonfuls of sugar? Gu Jiao. I did. She just added 2 more bowls of water. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Then what about the 2 extra eggs? Gu Jiao. I also put them in. It's just that it's Mimi's quail egg, the kind with the yolk removed. Empress Dowager Zhuang cried in her heart. Ijia feels wronged. Ijia won't say. Eunuch Qin rarely saw Empress Dowager Zhuang suffer, so he couldn't help but laugh. Empress Dowager Zhuang stared at him with a death stare. Eunuch Qin trembled. The fear of being dominated by Empress Dowager Zhuang in the past hit his heart. His legs went soft and he knelt down. Empress Dowager, please forgive me. Empress Dowager Zhuang narrowed her eyes dangerously. Just when Eunuch Qin thought he was going to die, Empress Dowager Zhuang suddenly raised her hand and pointed at Eunuch Qin. She said to Gu Jiao, Eunuch Qin also worked hard today. Jiao Jiao, make him a bowl too. When Eunuch Qin heard this, he wondered if he was scared silly. Empress Dowager said he worked hard? She even asked Miss Gu to personally cook him a sugar egg? Eunuch Qin hurriedly kowtowed. This servant doesn't dare. This servant doesn't dare. Empress Dowager Zhuang gloomily said, No, you dare. A quarter of an hour later, another bowl of sugar egg was brought over by Gu Jiao. The color of this bowl was much richer, and the aroma of brown sugar could be smelled from afar. Empress Dowager Zhuang said, You eat with Ijia. Eunuch Qin knelt down in fear. Eunuch Qin eat. Gu Jiao said with amusement. Eunuch Qin looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang with fear. He felt that if he ate, he would die. If he didn't, he would also die. He had to bite the bullet and sit down. Empress Dowager Zhuang said seriously, Jiao Jiao. Someone is calling you outside. Is that so? Empress Dowager Zhuang nodded. In the imperial garden. Oh. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows and walked out. As soon as she left, Empress Dowager Zhuang snatched Eunuch Qin's sugar egg. The dumbfounded Eunuch Qin. Digression. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Wu, I just felt wrong today. I need monthly votes to be comforted. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/112399645. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 289. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. When the news of Gu Changqing being acquitted spread out, it caused a huge commotion in the capital. There were too many details that everyone didn't know, such as the fact that Tang Ming had been abused in the manor. But putting that aside, Gu Changqing had chopped off one of Tang Ming's arms. How could he be acquitted? The old marquis also felt that it was strange. Perhaps Eunuch Wei's information was wrong. He hurried back to the manor, and found that Gu Changqing had indeed returned, and was washing up in his room. After staying in the torture chamber for so many days, his heart was like dead ashes, so he didn't care about his image. It wasn't until he looked in the bronze mirror that he realized how frightening he had been when he went to find Gu Yanin by Shui Alley that night. In the middle of the night, Gu Yan's mental fortitude was strong enough that he didn't think of him as a ghost. Gu Changqing bathed and changed his clothes. He washed his hair and shaved his beard. The elegant and handsome commandant had returned. Other than the slight bruise at the corner of his mouth, it was caused by the old marquis whip. Gu Chengfeng and Gu Chenglin also came over. The two of them had skipped class directly from Qinghe Academy, but at this critical juncture, no one would harshly criticize them. Big brother. Gu Chenglin saw Gu Changqing coming out of the bathroom and pounced over without thinking. He hugged him and breathed in the familiar scent of his body, as well as the gentle fragrance of locust. The tip of his nose ached. Big brother. I thought I'd never see you again. I heard that you were going to be executed. I even had the thought of killing Tang Ming. It's all his fault. Hearing this, Gu Changqing and Gu Chengfeng were both stunned. Could it be that Gu Chenglin also knew about Tang Ming? Gu Chenglin choked out. Why did he bully the Gu family army for no reason? He's a villain. He's a scoundrel. Big brother taught him a lesson. His martial arts weren't good and his skills weren't as good as others. Yet he blamed Big brother. If it weren't for that, Big brother wouldn't have been locked up. Alright, so that's what he was talking about. The two of them secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Chengfeng looked at Gu Changqing, who had obviously lost some weight, and his eyes darkened. He was still angry that his elder brother was so protective of Gu Yan, but he couldn't bear to see him being dragged around by Gu Chenglin when he was injured. He tugged at Gu Chenglin in annoyance. That's enough. Big brother just came out and his body is still weak. Don't keep carrying him. Oh. Gu Chenglin wiped his tears and released his arms. He looked at Gu Changqing with teary eyes. Big brother, you've lost weight. Gu Chengfeng said. Then go to the kitchen and tell them to make something delicious. Gu Qinglin finally heard the unfriendliness in Gu Qingfeng's tone. Second brother, why are you angry? Shouldn't you be happy that big brother is back? That's right. What was he angry about? Wasn't he just treating Gu Yan better than him and Gu Qinglin? Gu Chengfeng stormed out angrily. Gu Changqing. Gu Qinglin. You can leave as well. I have something to say to your elder brother. The Marquis instructed Gu Qinglin. Oh. Since his grandfather had spoken, Gu Qinglin didn't dare to disobey. He glanced at Gu Changqing reluctantly and said in a small voice, Big brother, I'll come back to see you later. Gu Changqing nodded in agreement. After Gu Qinglin left, the Marquis ordered the manservant to leave as well. The room suddenly quieted down. The grandfather and grandson looked at each other, speechless. The Marquis looked at Gu Changqing's injuries and actually didn't feel good either. However, in that situation, if he hadn't let Gu Changqing suffer, Tang Yueshan would have made him suffer. At least he knew the severity of his actions, but it was hard to say if Tang Yueshan had done it. In fact, it was thanks to his injuries that Tang Yueshan believed that he couldn't be the assassin who had cut off Tang Ming's balls that night. However, both grandfather and grandson had the same temperament. They had a strange sense of self-esteem and would never defend themselves. The Marquis cut to the chase. What's going on with Tang Ming? Why did Tang Yueshan suddenly release you? Why did he hold on to you and not let you go earlier? As for why Gu Changqing had cut off Tang Ming's arm in anger, and why he had broken out of prison, the Marquis had already given up on the former. As for the latter, the Marquis believed that Gu Changqing had gone to chase after the assassin. Of these three questions, Gu Changqing only answered the second one. Tang Yueshan caught the assassin who had broken into the military camp that night. He found some clues from the assassin's body and knew that I was innocent. He also knew that the mastermind wanted to sow discord between the Marquis Ding'an's manor and the marshal's manor. He didn't want to fall into the trap, so he let me go. How do you know? The Marquis asked. He told me personally, Gu Changqing replied. This was the truth. However, it wasn't all of it. Tang Yueshan had also said that he had been drugged, which was why he had acted against Tang Ming. He wanted him to quickly see a doctor. At the time, he was confused and didn't understand why Tang Yueshan would say such a thing. Tang Yueshan had also said that Tang Ming hadn't done it on purpose, and had also been drugged. He hoped that the two of them wouldn't fall into the mastermind's trap and become enemies. Gu Changqing knew very well what kind of person Tang Ming was. It was impossible for him to have been drugged. It was also on the way back that he gradually understood that his younger sister must have used some method to trick Tang Yueshan. As for the assassin, Gu Jiao had come to find Gu Changqing and had him set fire to the torture chamber. She had also made it look like she had escaped, leading the assassin to act and frame him. This morning, Tang Yueshan had told him that the assassin had already been dealt with. Gu Changqing thought that Tang Yueshan had caught the real assassin. As for Gu Jiao's involvement, Gu Changqing didn't tell the Marquis. The Marquis hadn't fought with the assassin and didn't know how cunning the assassin was. He thought that with Tang Yueshan's ability, it wasn't strange that he had caught the assassin, so he didn't suspect anything. Although the Marquis desperately wanted to know what kind of irreconcilable conflict Gu Changqing and Tang Ming had, the Marquis couldn't do anything if Gu Changqing wasn't willing to speak. The Marquis urged him to rest well and not go to the barracks for the next few days. So he got up and left. After such a big incident, not only did Tang Yueshan want to investigate the mastermind behind the scenes, he also wanted to know who had stabbed him in the back. Not long after the Marquis left, Gu Qingfeng came again. He had thought of business after being depressed for a while, so he came to find Gu Changqing to clarify things. Eldest brother, do you know that younger sister knows the Empress Dowager? He asked. Gu Changqing was wiping his long sword. Hearing this, he looked at him. His gaze paused on him for a moment. Then he continued wiping his sword. Yes, I know her. That's it. Can't you answer with a little more sincerity? How could I reveal that girl's secret? I saw it. Gu Qingfeng pursed his lips. Gu Changqing paused, then said, there are some things you don't need to know too much about. Whether or not she knows the Empress Dowager has nothing to do with the situation in the capital. Gu Chengfeng clicked his tongue. You say it as if I'll complain to grandfather. Also, who cares about that girl's secret? I clearly know more than you. Do you know that girl went to mess with Tang Ming? Do you know that she and I went to the marshal's manor to wait for the assassin? Do you know that the Empress Dowager saved us from Tang Yueshan? Ha ha. Gu Chengfeng shook his head and left with his nose in the air. Gu Chongqing felt that his second brother was acting strange today. He shook his head. At this moment, Gu Chengfeng, who had already left, appeared outside his window. With his hands on his hips, he said loudly, I rode horses with her, drank wine and played with water. After saying this, he ran away. Gu Chongqing. On the other side, Gu Jiao, who had stayed at Rinshou Palace for an entire night, also planned to go back. She had come last night wearing night clothes, but the Empress Dowager had many young women's clothes. She didn't know if they were specially prepared for her, but they all fit her well. Gu Jiao changed into an ice blue corset dress. Her hair was tied up in a simple bun, leaving a bit of long hair loose on her shoulders. She wore the hairpin that Xiao Lulang had given her on her birthday. Empress Dowager Zhuang had people bring over a basket of jewelry. She didn't take it. She did take a fancy to a mask with a peacock plume. The mask was inlaid with a dragon crystal, which was the so-called obsidian. She put it on and looked in the mirror. Oh, it looked good. Thank you, Grandaunt. Gu Jiao thanked her. Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. Eunuch Qin personally sent Gu Jiao to Bishui Alley before returning to the palace. Eunuch Qin had sent a message last night, so the family knew that Gu Jiao was resting at her grandaunt's place. There was nothing to worry about. However, little Jing Kong didn't see Gu Jiao after he woke up. His mouth was pursed the whole morning, and 2 pots of oil could be hung on it. Gu Jiao decided to pick up little Jing Kong from school and give him a surprise. However, Gu Jiao waited outside the Imperial College for a long time, but little Jing Kong didn't come out. What Gu Jiao didn't know was that little Jing Kong's parents had been summoned again. The parents were Xiao Lulang. Since Xiao Lulang entered the Hanlin Academy, the number of times his superiors called him was less than the number of times his parents had been summoned. When Lu Quan came to inform Xiao Lulang clenched his fists and asked Lu Quan, Why is it this time? Lu Quan's smile was uglier than his crying face. You should go and see for yourself. Xiao Lulang gritted his teeth and said, Why can't I say it? He even made the teacher cry. Is there anything more serious than this? Lu Quan scratched his head and smiled. Haha, there really was. Xiao Lulang took a deep breath. He usually didn't lose his temper, but it didn't mean that he didn't have a temper. It was just that his good manners allowed him to hide it. However, this little monk had stepped on his bottom line again and again, and he was about to explode. Lu Quan thought to himself, You can explode when you get there. I'm afraid that if you explode now, you'll explode later. Xiao Lulang and Lu Quan went to the Imperial College. Perhaps he was traumatized by little Jing Kong, but after this incident, Teacher Sun still called Teacher Jiang over to support him. The 2 teachers' expressions were a little complicated. Xiao Lulang looked at Teacher Sunday. He didn't cry, wasn't hurt, and didn't see any other children coming to complain. It shouldn't be a big mistake, right? Teacher Sun, may I ask what has happened to Jing Kong? He asked politely. Teacher Sun had a bet with him, but Teacher Sun didn't think that Xiao Lulang would win, so he had forgotten about the bet. Today he was purely talking to Xiao Lulang as a teacher of little Jing Kong. You go to the classroom and take a look yourself. Xiao Lulang followed Teacher Sun to the classroom. As soon as he reached the door, he felt that the classroom was especially bright today. When he took a closer look, it turned out that a bunch of little brats were glowing. His body trembled, and he suspected that he had walked in the wrong direction. He subconsciously lifted his foot. Teacher Sun smiled bitterly. Xiao Lulang was a person who had been through a lot, so he quickly reacted. His heart was in turmoil, but he didn't show it on his face. This was done by Jing Kong? Teacher Sun nodded. He was about to cry. He shaved half of the heads of the class. Among them was a prince and a few sons and grandsons of important ministers. Oh my God, such a thing happened in his class. How was he going to die? Xiao Lulang was mentally prepared. When teacher Sun first entered the classroom, he didn't know. When he opened the door and saw a nest of little monks, the impact was simply too great. Xiao Lulang said, "No, why did he do that?" Teacher Sun wanted to cry. That's the problem. Jing Kong didn't force him. They all begged him to shave their heads. Yes, it was shaving. Teacher Sun remembered very clearly that this was what little Jing Kong had used when he had replied. Xiao Liulang's teeth hurt. Was this child addicted to shaving people's heads? Also, how did he bring the razor to the Imperial College? Xiao Lulang suppressed his anger and called out little Jing Kong. Tell me what happened. Why did they ask you to shave their heads? Little Jing Kong nodded and spread his hands. Because they all want to be as smart as me. As he spoke, he gently patted his little bald head. Great Aunt said that smart people don't have hair. This is called extremely smart. Yesterday, when Great Aunt came to play mahjong, he was very sad. He asked Great Aunt why he couldn't grow his hair. This was what Great Aunt said to him. Xiao Liulang's mouth twitched. Great Aunt, how could you trick your child like this? Achoo. In Renshou Palace, Empress Dowager Zhuang, who was reading memorials, suddenly sneezed. Yes, Jiao Jiao must be missing me. Little Jing Kong was the first in class and never lied. Therefore, his words were very convincing. When he said that shaving would make one smarter, no one doubted him. Qin Chuyu was the first to support his little friend, and Su Kanji was the second. After that, the situation became uncontrollable. If teacher Sun didn't come early, little Jing Kong would have ruined the hair of the entire class. Needless to say, he shaved it quite well. But then again, how could a 4-year-old child have such strong hands-on skills? Teacher Sun was confused. He's so good at shaving people's heads. Was he a monk before? Xiao Lulang said, yes. Teacher Sun. Digression. Little Jing Kong sang, if Buddha doesn't save me, then I'll save you. By the Other Shore of Forgetfulness, Mr. Gu's Canary, by Li Bian. One day, the chairman of Junhua Group attended an international business meeting. The reporters raised their cameras and asked, Mr. Gu, how did you get together with Mrs. Gu? Gu Jiangnian stopped in his tracks and turned around slightly with a faint smile. Draw a circle and plan slowly. His friend smiled and asked, what if the canary flies? The man leaned back in his seat, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. His slender fingers tapped the cigarette ash. And his words were cruel and heartless. Then I'll break her wings and destroy her dreams, and raise her in captivity. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1123724006. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile version reading website. Chapter 290. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. Gu Jiao waited at the entrance of the Imperial College for a long time, but little Jing Kong did not come out. She asked the guard and learned that school was not over yet, so she decided to continue waiting. But after a while, Xiao Sanzi hurried over. Miss Gu, there's a patient who needs to be seen urgently. All the doctors in the clinic have gone to see him, but only Dr. Lu is in the clinic. But he can't leave now because there's a patient in the clinic. Got it, I'll go see him. Gu Jiao got into Xiao Sanzi's carriage and went back to Baishui Alley to get her medicine box. Then she went to the clinic to see the young man who came to ask for a doctor. The young man was dressed in plain clothes and did not look like he came from a rich family. He took someone else's carriage and went back to sit outside with Xiao Sanzi. The weather in May was not cold anymore, and it was even a little hot in the afternoon. The young man was happy to sit outside and enjoy the breeze. From the young man, Gu Jiao learned that the place they were going to was called Ciu Village, which was equivalent to the orphanage in Gu Jiao's previous life. There were Ciu villages everywhere, and most of them were opened by the government. There were also some rich local gentry who opened some Ciu villages to show their kindness and help the people. Since there was an orphanage, Gu Jiao asked if there was a nursing home. The young man said, "Miss Gu, are you talking about a nursing home? There is no nursing home on our street, but there is one on Shilu Street. They take in more soldiers and workers who are old and weak and have no children to take care of. There are not many people who go there." "Why?" Gu Jiao asked. The young man smiled bitterly. "I can't take it in." Gu Jiao did not say anything. Welfare institutions were the same in every time and space. Not everyone could go there, but the intention was good, and it did solve some people's needs. Ciu Village was remote, and the carriage finally arrived at the entrance of Ciu Village after more than an hour. The words on the plaque were peeling, the door was cracked, and the walls were covered with mold and moss. It was shabby. This was Gu Jiao's first impression. Entering the gate, there was a large courtyard that was similar to the layout of their house. On the left, there was a small vegetable garden, and on the right, there was a small fish pond. The courtyard was connected to a few rooms, which seemed to be for adults to live in. After passing through the hall, the second courtyard was for the children. There were many children's clothes hanging in the yard. The material was not bad. They were new and clean, without any patches. It was close to dinner time, and the children of Ciu Manor were eating in the eastern dining hall. Gu Jiao smelled the aroma of vegetables and meat. The food was not bad. It seemed that Ciu Zhuang had spent all their money where it should be spent. "Where is the patient?" Gu Jiao asked. The young man said, "In the back, please follow me." The patient lived in a room in the tertiary hospital. The orientation of the room was not good. It was cold in the winter and hot in the summer. Whenever it rained, the room would leak. Gu Jiao had just stepped over the threshold when she felt a stuffy air. She could imagine how uncomfortable it was to live in this room. The young man stood at the door and scratched his head, saying, "This young man and I will not go in. I will have to trouble Miss Gu to treat her." Xiao Sanzi suspected that the other party had said the wrong thing. Shouldn't he have said, "I will have to trouble Miss Gu to treat her"? When Gu Jiao entered the room, she understood why the young man had said that. The patient lying on the cold and hard bed inside was actually Gu Jinyu. Gu Jiao had not seen Gu Jinyu for some time. She had not expected to see her here. Gu Jinyu was dressed in the coarse hemp clothes of the commoners. The pearl hairpins in her hair had been replaced by 2 simple hair ribbons. Her cheeks were thinner, but her skin was not as fair as when she lived in the manor. It was obvious that she had been exposed to the sun. She also seemed to have grown a little taller. A trace of surprise flitted across Gu Jinyu's eyes. She had not expected that it would be Gu Jiao. She looked at Gu Jiao with a complicated expression. She opened her mouth and finally said in a low voice, "It's you." This time she did not call her elder sister. Gu Jiao had not come because she had called her elder sister. She had accepted the other party's money to treat her illness. That was all. She walked forward and sat down on the stool by the bed. "What's wrong?" Gu Jinyu lowered her eyes and said in a low voice, "My period came. I had a stomachache and fainted from the pain just now." "Give me your hand," Gu Jiao said. Gu Jinyu slowly extended her right hand. Gu Jiao had not interacted much with Gu Jinyu, but she had seen her hands before. Her fingers had never touched the sun or water. They were as delicate as porcelain and as shiny as jade. Now they were much rougher. Although they did not have large and small wounds like Gu Jiao's hands, they had lost their original luster. They were hands that had worked before. Gu Jiao took her pulse and withdrew her hand, saying, "Her abdomen caught a cold and has a blood stasis. She'll be fine after taking some medicine that relaxes her muscles and activates her blood. Prescribe some painkillers as well. If the pain is too much, take one. You don't have to endure until you faint." After Gu Jiao finished speaking, she turned and placed the small basket on the table. She took out the medicine from the small medicine chest and separated them into porcelain bottles. She used a charcoal pencil to write down the instructions and dosage on the bottles that were covered with cloth. Gu Jiao did not ask how she had appeared at Ciu village. Had she come on her own, or had the Marquise Fu chased her out? Gu Jiao prepared to leave after giving her the medicine. Elder sister. Gu Jinyu suddenly called out to her. Her expression and tone were filled with hesitation and apprehension. Are mother and younger brother well? They're fine, Gu Jiao said concisely. I'm sorry, she said in a small voice. Her throat was slightly choked. Gu Jiao said mildly. A patient doesn't need to apologize to a doctor. Gu Jinyu looked steadily at Gu Jiao and said, I know you don't like to hear this, but I'm really not putting on a show. I've stayed at Ciu village for a period of time before I fully understood how hard life is for the poor. Elder sister's life back then must have been even harder than theirs, right? I heard that family often didn't give elder sister food to eat. They even beat and scolded elder sister and forced elder sister to work. If we hadn't been swapped, I would have been the one to bear all this. I stole elder sister's life, but in the end, I was jealous of elder sister because I didn't receive mother and younger brother's care. I looked down on elder sister because elder sister was a peasant woman from the countryside. Ciu village had a few clever children, but they were abandoned in this kind of place. They couldn't study and couldn't learn anything. Such good seedlings were ruined just like that. If it had been me who had stayed in the countryside, I would probably have been like them. I always looked down on elder sister because I had some talent. I never thought that these opportunities to learn were given to me by elder sister's status. If elder sister was like me and grew up in the Marquis' household, how much worse could she be than me now? I was unwilling to admit that elder sister was more outstanding than me. It was my vanity that caused trouble. I don't ask elder sister to forgive me. I just want to tell elder sister that I won't do it again in the future. Whether elder sister thinks that I have turned over a new leaf or that I have accepted my fate. In any case, I won't be able to stay in the Marquis' household for long. When she said this, her face was full of bitterness. I really envy elder sister. After marrying, mother and younger brother can stay by your side. I still don't know what kind of family I will marry into. Grandmother is choosing a marriage for me. But in the end, I won't have as much freedom as elder sister. Are you done? Gu Jiao asked. Gu Jiao's coldness was within Gu Jinyu's expectations. She laughed self-mockingly and said, I heard that brother-in-law became the top scholar. I'm here to congratulate elder sister and brother-in-law. Thank you. After Gu Jiao finished speaking, she carried the small basket on her back and left. Gu Jiao's heart was like iron as she sat on the carriage back. While Xiao Sanzi was waiting outside for Gu Jiao, he chatted with the young man and a few children from Ciu. He did not know that the patient inside was Gu Jiao's younger sister in name, the daughter who had been swapped with Gu Jiao when they were young. Since there was nothing to do on the road, Xiao Sanzi told Gu Jiao the news he had heard. It is said that the young lady is the daughter of a large family. She concealed her identity and came to Ciu to do good deeds. If she had not fainted today, and was helped into the room by the kitchen maids of Ciu and found her token, we would not have known that she was someone of status. But she did not say what her identity was. Gu Jiao lifted the curtains and admired the scenery by the roadside. Xiao Sanzi continued. Ciu did not receive much money every month, so the children did not have enough to eat and wear. It was because of that young lady's arrival that the situation of Ciu improved. She bought all the children's clothes, and she also paid for the groceries every month. In this world, there are not many young ladies who are so kind. Xiao Sanzi continued to ramble on, but Gu Jiao did not hear him. She fell asleep. On the other side, Xiao Lulang had finally finished cleaning up the mess left by the little monk. He came out of the Imperial College with a gloomy face. He held little Jing Kong's hand. Although little Jing Kong's hand was held by him, his little head drooped. His small body expressed infinite resistance, as if he was going to be dragged home by the traffickers. Xiao Lulang saw that the little fellow was unwilling, so he sneered. Oh, I won't help you this time. He finally realized that he was fearless now that she was always covering for him. Last time he made teacher's son cry. This time he shaved half of the class bald. He really dared to shave. Little Jing Kong felt wronged. I already said that they wanted me to shave. Shouldn't classmates help each other and be friendly and united? What's wrong with me helping them? You didn't praise me for being open-minded, and you didn't care that they became smarter and fought with me for first place. You even complained to Jiao Jiao about me. You're unreasonable. Reasonable, right? Okay, I'll explain it to you. Xiao Lulang stopped in his tracks. In the quiet alley, he looked at him seriously. If you shave because they asked you to, then shave. If they ask you to be the last in the exam, will you be the last in the exam? Little Jing Kong pursed his lips and said hesitantly, I want to take the exam, but I'm not good enough. Xiao Lulang laughed. Xiao Lulang continued, also, doesn't the Imperial College prohibit carrying knives? You can shave again for me. Little Jing Kong couldn't shave anymore. He was caught red-handed. However, if the hard way didn't work, he would use the soft way. Little Jing Kong looked at him cutely and twisted his body. Sister, can I not tell Jiao Jiao? Xiao Yulong's body trembled. Don't act cute. This time he was in big trouble. In the Zhao Kingdom, men were not allowed to shave their hair after they reached the age of 12. However, most people stopped shaving after they were 2 or 3 years old, unless they were injured or sick. Among them, the rules of the royal family were the strictest. Today he was the first to shave a prince's hair. If Qin Shiyu didn't cry and say that he wanted to shave his hair, he would have been arrested and interrogated in the palace. However, because he shaved the prince's hair, the officials' parents didn't dare to say anything. What else could they do? The emperor didn't stand up for his son, so they rushed to complain. What? Was their child more precious than the prince? Little Jing Kong failed to act cute. He sighed and reluctantly accepted the fact that his bad brother-in-law was going to tell on him. When he got home, he found that Gu Jiaojiao had gone to see a patient. Xiao Lulang pointed at the inner wall of the front yard. You can reflect on your mistakes here and wait for Jiaojiao to come back. Little Jing Kong lowered his head and obediently stood by the wall. Marquis Xianping went out of the city to handle a case today. He passed by Bishui Alley on his way back, so he stopped by to take a look. The courtyard door was open. As soon as he stepped over the threshold, he saw a pitiful little boy with his face against the wall and his little fingers scratching the wall. Oh, wasn't this the little boy who beat up the envoy of the Liang Kingdom with Qin Shiyu and Minister Su's youngest son in the palace? The corners of Marquis Xianping's lips curled as he walked over and poked his little shoulder from behind. Little Jing Kong turned around and looked at Marquis Xianping with resentment. What are you doing? He was angry and cute. Marquis Xianping suddenly wanted to bully the little boy. He smiled and said, Did you get into trouble again? Tell me, I'll give you some advice. Little Jing Kong was a prideful person, so he wouldn't admit that he got into trouble and was punished. Who are you? Do we know each other well? Marquis Xianping smiled. Oh, you cried so hard last time that I was covered in snot. It's only been a few days, and you want to deny it. Little Jing Kong was a bit embarrassed when he mentioned this. Although he was prideful, he was also reasonable. He saved Handsome Uncle, and Handsome Uncle helped him. They had a strong friendship. Little Jing Kong's expression softened a lot, and he asked, I'm Jing Kong, what's your name? Marquis Xianping felt that little Jing Kong was quite interesting, so he didn't put on airs and said honestly, I'm Xiaoji. Little Jing Kong stared at him. Xiaoji? You're a Xiaoji? Marquis Xianping's smile froze. He gritted his teeth and said, It's Xiaoji. Forget it, if you don't understand, just call me Marquis Xiao. He wasn't as unfamiliar as Marquis Xianping. Little Jing Kong's eyes widened, and he looked at him with a complicated expression. How did you become Xiaoji again? Are you a Xiaoji or a Xiaoji? What Xiaoji or Xiaoji? Marquis Xianping's teeth chattered. It's Xiaoji. Monkey Brothers Monkey. F***ck. He was led astray. He wanted to say Marquis. Marquis Xianping said with a toothache. Forget it, Xiaoji. However, little Jing Kong's expression became even more indescribable. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896422826/112369638. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 291. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. Little Jing Kong looked at Marquis Xianping as if he was looking at an idiot. Little chick. Marquis Xianping realized that he shouldn't have added that word after his name. Otherwise, with this little thing's comprehension ability, he wouldn't know what he would say. Whatever he was afraid of, it would come true. The little thing really opened its mouth. Marquis Xianping had never been so panicked before. He shook his body and said, "Shut up. Swallow the last word back." Little Jing Kong shut his mouth. Okay. The world of adults is so hard to understand. Not only did he give me such a bad name, he can't even differentiate between chickens and monkeys. Marquis Xianping heaved a sigh of relief. Little Jing Kong put his little hands behind his back and tilted his head. 8. He still said the last word. Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping shed blood but not tears. He was never afraid of war, but this little baldy's lethality was greater than thousands of soldiers and horses. Marquis Xianping never knew when he would step into a pit. It was too scary. Marquis Xianping, who had always made others speechless, finally had a day when he was being made speechless. Indeed, he had to pay for what he did. Little Jing Kong sighed. "Sigh, my family does have 7 chicks, but you can't be the 8th one." Marquis Xianping. Was he thinking too much? Marquis Xianping grew up in a group of ruffians, so he knew more dirty words than normal words. It was inevitable that he would think the wrong way. But on second thought, saying that he was going to be a chicken didn't seem to be a good thing. It wasn't much better than that poor thing. He was a first-grade martial marquis. How could he be a chicken? Marquis Xianping felt that he couldn't talk to this little brat anymore. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "If I say that I'm your brother-in-law's biological father, would you believe me?" Little Jing Kong frowned and looked at him strangely. After a while, he nodded seriously. "No wonder." "No wonder what?" Marquis Xianping asked. Little Jing Kong rubbed his chin and said with a sudden realization, "No wonder my brother-in-law always gets the last place." He had wronged his brother-in-law. It was not that his brother-in-law was not hard-working enough. It was because his father was not smart. His father did not even know if he was a monkey or a chicken. Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping's heart received 10,000 critical hits. He could no longer remember what he came here for. He didn't even recognize his son. He clutched his chest and called Chongjing. Help me back. Chongjing. Can't you walk by yourself?" Marquis Xianping. "Why would I call you if I could walk? Come on. Come here. Why don't you be angered by this little brat?" Chongjing didn't want to leave, because he saw the marbles on the ground. He wanted to stay and play marbles. However, he could not disobey Marquis Xianping's orders. He resentfully left with Marquis Xianping. Not long after they left, Gu Jiao arrived home. Little Jing Kong's eyes lit up when he saw Gu Jiao walking into the courtyard. He ran over and hugged Gu Jiao's leg. "Jiao Jiao, you're finally back. I missed you so much." He let go of his hand and went behind Gu Jiao. He grabbed Gu Jiao's small basket and said, "Give me the basket. I'll carry it." Gu Jiao took down the small basket and took out the small medicine box. She put the small basket, which was not very heavy, on his back. It was a small basket for Gu Jiao, but it was a big one for little Jing Kong. The basket on his back was almost as tall as he was. He half carried and half dragged it as he made his way into the house. Xiao Lulang was studying arithmetic in the study. Ever since he got little Jing Kong's book that seemed to be the national book of the Yan Kingdom, he would study the contents of the book carefully whenever he was free. Since the book was written in a completely different language, it was still difficult to understand even though there were some annotations. However, the strange characters used to represent numbers aroused his strong interest. The things called formulas that were listed out by those characters and symbols also made him feel amazed. Since the numbering technique was lost, the Zhao kingdom still used the method of cutting the circle to calculate the ancestral rate. However, even if a circle was cut into tens of thousands of sides, it might not be able to calculate beyond 7 digits. The formulas recorded in this book were much simpler, but he had not understood them yet. Xiao Lulang was immersed in the sea of questions until he heard a loud thud. Only then did he raise his head to look out the window. He saw little Jingkong carrying a small basket on his back as he walked in. Behind little Jingkong, Gu Jiao was wearing an ice blue dress. She was elegant and graceful like a swallow, which made people's eyes light up. At this moment, Gu Jiao seemed to have sensed something and looked toward the window of the west room. Their eyes met. Gu Jiao slightly curved her lips. Like a budding begonia, it bloomed in the night wind, under the starry sky, and in the softest heart. Xiao Liulang's heart beat faster. His eyelashes fluttered, and he looked away and continued to study hard. Gu Jiao did not seem to want to pretend that nothing happened. She came to the window, put one arm on the windowsill, and looked at him with the other hand supporting her chin. "What are you doing?" The night wind blew gently from behind her, swaying the faint fragrance of her body, and covering the ink on the table. Xiao Liulang's heart suddenly felt warm. He did not look at Gu Jiao, but looked steadily at the book on the table. "Reading," he said calmly. "Oh." Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows and suddenly leaned into the window. The sudden approach made Xiao Liulang's body stiffen, and his body seemed to be unable to move. She was very close to him, so close that it was as if their cheeks were about to touch. Xiao Liulang's mind suddenly flashed with the image of her being drunk and grabbing him for a kiss. She looked like a seductive kitten. His throat was dry. "You." Just when Xiao Lulang thought that she was going to do something to him, she just reached out and took a piece of paper beside him. After taking the paper, she stood back to her original position. The breath on his cheeks and the tip of his nose dissipated. Xiao Lulang felt an inexplicable sense of loss. He did not know what he was feeling lost about. Gu Jiao took out a charcoal pencil and scribbled a few words on the paper. Then she curved her lips and left a note. She turned around and went back to her east room. Xiao Liulang's face was hot for a long time before it faded. After he calmed down, he saw the note on the windowsill from the corner of his eyes. He picked it up and looked at it. He saw a few large words written on the paper with a charcoal pencil. "Book, taken down." Xiao Lulang remembered the meaningful look in her eyes when she left the note. His face that had just returned to normal once again became hot. During dinner, Yao Shi and Gu Yan both had good eyesight. They could see that Xiao Lulang was pretending to be calm. Only Gu Xiaoshan stared at Xiao Lulang in a daze for a while and asked, "Brother-in-law, why is your face red?" "She really touched a sore spot," Xiao Lulang said with a straight face. "It's hot." "Oh." Gu Xiaoshan nodded. "It's quite hot." Yao Shi pursed her lips and snickered. Gu Xiaoshan still wanted to ask something, but Gu Yan stuffed a drumstick into his mouth. "Eat your food." Oh, Gu Xiaoshuan's mouth suddenly became busy. He forgot what he wanted to ask. After dinner, little Jing Kong had no choice but to confess the great feat of shaving half of his head under the strong pressure of his bad brother-in-law. The first one to be shaved was Chuyu. Xiao Lulang added. Little Jing Kong did not know that Chuyu's surname was Qin, and that he was a prince. Gu Jiao knew about it. Gu Jiao. Oh, he even dares to shave a prince? Xiao Lulang. What's with your expression? Why do you look like you're admiring him? Someone must have contributed a lot to raising this child to be so bold. Gu Jiao received Xiao Liulang's death stare. She blinked and silently swallowed the words, "My child is amazing, bold, careful, and capable of doing things." She said to little Jing Kong sternly, "Don't bring a razor to the Imperial College in the future. We can't shave people's heads for free." Xiao Lulang. Little Jing Kong's shaving caused a huge uproar in the Imperial College, but it was the same in the Imperial Palace. When Qin Chuyu walked out of the Imperial College with a round little Luden, the eunuch who came to pick him up was stunned on the spot. Qin Chuyu did not realize that he had done something shocking. He sat on the carriage back to the Imperial Palace and waited expectantly for himself to wake up and become smarter. Actually, with Qin Chuyu's ability, he could not enter the gifted class. It was the crown princess who got him in through the back door. This caused Qin Chuyu to be in a very awkward situation. He was the worst in the class and always ranked last in the exams. The teacher knew his identity. Although he did not dare to speak ill of him, he was 8 years old and was a mature little boy. He also wanted to save face. His desire to become smarter was stronger than anyone else's. Therefore, he decisively took the first place to shave his head. He went to Empress Zhao's cunning palace with a bald head. Mother! Empress Zhao was choosing the new materials. Hearing this, she turned her head with a smile and fainted. Then the emperor was alerted. After a while, the entire harem knew about Qin Chuyu's shave. Noble consort Zhuang sent someone to ask if the 7th prince was going to become a monk. The emperor was furious and asked Qin Chuyu, "Who did it? Shaving a prince's head? Did he want to die?" Qin Chuyu thought it was a good thing because he was about to become smarter, so he did not hide anything. It was Jing Kong. Who? The emperor was stunned. Jing Kong. Qin Chuyu said, "Father, you've seen him before. Have you forgotten? The little miracle-working doctor's younger brother?" The emperor's anger instantly disappeared. Why did he shave your head?" Qin Chuyu said. "I asked him to shave it. I also want to be as smart as him." Then Qin Chuyu told the emperor the whole story. His tone was extremely proud. He was going to become smart soon. The emperor clenched his fists, and the corners of his mouth twitched. This stupid boy. Did the books go to the cows' stomachs? Was this how smart he was? In the end, Qin Chuyu was very honored to eat his father's bamboo shoots fried with meat. It hurt so much. Sob. The emperor punished Qin Chuyu behind closed doors. Moreover, the emperor punished him not because he shaved his head, but because the emperor did a spot check on his homework and he did not memorize it. The officials and parents of the shaved children waited for the emperor's statement. In the end, the emperor did not say anything, so they gave up the idea of asking for an explanation. Strictly speaking, that little guy could not be blamed. It did not seem like he did it on purpose. Moreover, even if he did it on purpose, a group of 6 or 7 years old people were fooled by a 4-year-old. Did they have the face to find trouble with him? Wasn't it because they were stupid? From the initial shock, anger, and humiliation, everyone gradually calmed down. Then they realized one thing. That was their child's head was shaved really clean. There was not even an extra strand of hair. This was professional. My youngest son is almost a month old. I want to find someone to shave his fetal hair. My nephew is 2 years old. He also wants to shave his head, but he can't find a suitable master. The previous one didn't shave his head clean. The master I found is the same. He even shaved his head. Everyone sent the child to the entrance of the Imperial College. They looked at each other and understood each other's thoughts. However, it was better to just think about it. How could they really invite a child to their home to shave someone's head? I don't think it's appropriate. I think so too. Then let's go? Let's go. Damn it, let's go. If you have the ability, don't wait here for that kid. Early the next morning, little Jing Kong valiantly went to school at the Imperial College. As a result, he received a wave of hot and greedy gazes. He didn't understand what was going on. Xiao Lulang let little Jing Kong go in first. Everyone rushed forward and surrounded Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang thought that they were here to ask him for an explanation, and was mentally prepared to be criticized by thousands of people. However, he didn't expect that the first thing they said was, "Is it convenient for your younger brother to shave his head at my house?" Xiao Lulang. Of course, Xiao Lulang didn't agree. What a joke. This kid owned 3 big houses in the capital. Just the rent in Pushui Alley alone was 30 taels a month. If he went out to develop a hair-shaving business, would he, as his brother-in-law, still have a financial status in the family? Therefore, little Jing Kong didn't know that his hair-shaving business was ruthlessly killed by his bad brother-in-law. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zip ZHHBQG. com/89642_896422826/1123455503. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 292. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The weather in the capital at the end of May was as hot as summer. Xiao Lulang had been in Hanlin Academy for 20 days. He was one of the editors of Hanlin Academy, but because he was a newcomer, he still focused on learning. In the morning, there would be special attendants or lecturers to teach them. The class would last for 2 hours, and the rest of the time, they would study by themselves. If they encountered something they didn't understand, they could ask the attendants or lecturers in private. They could also ask the Hanlin Academy scholars or the 5 Classics scholars. The highest official in Hanlin Academy was the Hanlin Academy scholar, a 5th rank official. He was in charge of all matters of Hanlin Academy. He was busy with official business, and generally didn't have time to answer questions for new officials. Under the Hanlin Academy, there were 2 reading attendants and 2 lecturer attendants. They were all level 6. They were mainly responsible for lecturing. They were not only limited to training Hanlin Academy officials and scholars. If they had enough experience, they had the opportunity to enter the palace and lecture for the emperor and crown prince. Xiao Lulang was one of the editors of Hanlin Academy, a 6th rank official. The 2nd place Princeton and the 3rd place Ning Ziyuan were editors of Hanlin Academy, a 7th rank official. Under the 3 of them, there were 9 5 Classics scholars, a 8th rank official. It was worth mentioning that among all the officials of Hanlin Academy, only the 5 Classics scholars were hereditary. Therefore, even if their official ranks weren't high, they had a very strong literary background and had an outstanding status in Hanlin Academy. In addition, there were 2 8th rank officials, 2 9th rank attendants, 6 9th rank attendants, and the 1st rank official Kong Mu. The responsibilities of Hanlin Academy in each dynasty were different. The current Hanlin Academy head was in charge of writing imperial edicts, history, literature, and other things. He would also write notes about the emperor's daily life. After Xiao Lulang and the others studied for a while, they gradually began to come into contact with some basic literature matters. Today, a writer surnamed Yang called Xiao Lulang over. He was the most senior writer. If nothing unexpected happened, he would be promoted after the year-end examination. Now all the writers of Hanlin Academy were under his control. He asked Xiao Lulang to write an inscription, saying that His Majesty had plans to rebuild the imperial mausoleum. Half an hour later, Xiao Lulang handed the inscriptions he had written to Yang Xiu. After Yang Xiuzhu read it, he frowned in dissatisfaction. "You're the new top scorer, and you're only at this level? Look at what you've written. If we show this kind of inscription to His Majesty will definitely be angered." Xiao Lulang paused and asked, "Then may I ask, which words will infuriate His Majesty?" Yang Xiusua had a look of disbelief on his face. "Can't you tell? Do you still need me to teach you? How did you become the top scholar?" Xiao Lulang pursed his lips and didn't say anything. He went back and rewrote it. In the end, Yang Xiuzhua was still not satisfied. Xiao Lulang wrote 17 or 18 inscriptions in the morning, but they were all rejected by Yang Xiu. Yang Xiu said angrily, "Why can't you even write a decent inscription? I think you don't need to eat lunch. Stay here and continue writing for me. Write until I'm satisfied." After saying this, Yang Xiusua left Xiao Lulang and coldly went to the Hanlin Academy's restaurant. Xiao Lulang took the inscription back to his office and continued to grind, pick up the brush, and write the inscription. The weather was stuffy, and his office was like a steamer. A thin layer of sweat seeped out of his body and soaked his clothes. Suddenly, a head with an official's hat poked in. He pinched his nose and looked around. After making sure that no one was outside, he quietly hugged the food box and slipped into the office. A dark shadow pressed down on his paper. Xiao Luleng paused his writing and looked up at him. Why are you here? Ning Ziyuan put the food box on the table and said, I brought you food. I just ran into Feng Lin and Lin Qingye at the restaurant. They asked me why you didn't come to eat, and I said you already ate. As he spoke, he opened the lid of the food box. It wasn't a good dish. His family was poor and the price of food in Beijing was high. His meager salary wasn't enough for him to spend every month. He brought Xiao Luleng a bowl of yangchun noodles, sprinkled a few green onions, and a plate of marinated bean sprouts. It was just that. Xiao Luleng's office was too close to the bedroom. The weather was cold and fashionable, and now that it was hot, the smell was a bit strong. He hurried to close the door and windows. The smell was finally better, but the room was more like a steamer. Hurry up and eat. Ning Ziyuan urged Xiao Luleng. Xiao Luleng didn't argue. He took out a bowl and chopsticks and ate the yangchun noodles and marinated bean sprouts. The taste of the yangchun noodles was bland, and the marinated bean sprouts were salty, but he wasn't picky and ate very thoroughly. In such a short time, Ning Ziyuan was already sweating. He really didn't know how Xiao Luleng survived every day. Seeing that Xiao Luleng had finished eating, Ning Ziyuan hurriedly endured the exhaustion of heatstroke and walked over to open the door and windows. A gentle breeze blew over, relieving the heat, but also ecstasy. Xiao Luleng put away the bowls and chopsticks. Ning Ziyuan looked at the dense stack of inscriptions on his desk, hesitated, and asked, Yang Xiuzhu embarrassed you again? It wasn't the first time. The last few times, it was more subtle, only asking him to rewrite 3 to 5 chapters. Today he didn't even allow Xiao Luleng to eat lunch. Ning Ziyuan casually picked up a few inscriptions and looked at them speechless. His writing is much better than mine. He even praised me this morning. I think you shouldn't write a new one. Just take a random one and submit it. I bet he didn't even read the ones you wrote before. However, it was undeniable that Xiao Luleng's inscriptions were indeed better than the one before, but his first one was already amazing enough. How did this guy do it? Didn't anyone see you coming? Xiao Luleng asked. Ning Ziyuan smiled and said, They're all eating. No one noticed me. Don't stay too long. Go back early, Xiao Luleng said as he took out a silver coin from his money pouch. This is for the meal. Ning Ziyuan waved his hand. I don't want your money. I can still afford a bowl of yangchun noodles. Xiao Luleng thought about it and didn't insist. Okay, thanks. Ning Ziyuan sat there for a while. It was really stuffy and smelly. It was really hard for Xiao Luleng to stay in such a difficult place every day and be constantly bullied. If it were him, he would have broken down and resigned long ago. Forget it. He wanted to persuade Xiao Luleng to give in to Royal Princeton. In fact, it wasn't that Royal Princeton was messing with him. Royal Princeton had just arrived and couldn't order these people around. Ning Ziyuan guessed that it was Grand Tutor Zhuang's instructions. He wanted to make Xiao Luleng suffer a little. However, if Royal Princeton was willing to mediate between them, he could more or less protect Xiao Luleng. After all, the 3 of them were the top 3 in this year's competition. They were the Emperor's disciples, and had a special relationship as fellow disciples. However, he also understood that Xiao Luleng wasn't the kind of person who would pretend to comply but secretly oppose. You should go back, Xiao Luleng said. It's too hot here. Okay, I'm leaving. Ning Ziyuan saw that he didn't want to talk about this topic. He sighed, took the food box, and carefully left. In the afternoon, Xiao Luleng gave the new inscription he wrote to Yang Xiuzhua. Yang Xiuzhua naturally had a lot of picky comments. If it weren't for the rules, he might have thrown this stack of inscriptions at Xiao Luleng's head. You can't do anything right. He sat back in his chair angrily and glared at Xiao Luleng. Why are you standing there? Hurry up and rewrite it. Xiao Luleng turned and left. Hey, what's with your attitude? Yang Xiuzhua gritted his teeth, and was about to explode when Royal Princeton suddenly walked in. He looked at Xiao Luleng who was walking in, and then looked at Yang Xiuzhua who was fuming. He said gently with a hint of guilt, Did I come at a bad time? How could it be? Yang Xiuzhua's expression changed in a second. He stood up with a grin and came in front of Royal Princeton. Royal Princeton dodged his bow and said politely, There's no Royal Princeton here. There's only Zhuang Yuheng. Yang Xiuzhua, you're too polite. Ah. Yes. Yes. Yang Xiuzhua laughed and scratched his head. He asked, Yuheng is looking for me. Is there something you need from me? Royal Princeton said. I met Scholar Han on the way here. He said that there's a batch of history books in the library of Mount Yueluo that needs editing. He asked Yang Xiuzhua to bring a few people over. It's best if you can finish it by today. The library of Mount Yueluo was donated by a hermit. There were many history books from different dynasties inside. However, some of them needed editing. Yang Xiuzhua quickly said, Okay, I'll bring people over immediately. Editor Zhuang. I can go. Royal Princeton nodded. Yang Xiuzhua smiled brightly. Royal Princeton looked at Xiao Lulang, who had already walked out, and said, Bring Xiao Lulang with you. I remember that he's very good at history. Yang Xiuzhua flattered. He can't be compared to you. However, since Royal Princeton said so, Yang Xiuzhua temporarily gave up on torturing Xiao Lulang to write the inscription on the tombstone. Instead, he brought Xiao Lulang and Royal Prince to Mount Yueluo outside the capital. Ning Ziyuan didn't go. He was called to do odd jobs by the reading officer in the afternoon. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/112342720. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 293. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Yuluo Mountain wasn't too far from the capital. After exiting the South City Gate, it was 10 miles southeast. The library pavilion had 2 courtyards. There were only 2 study rooms where the books were kept, the east and west rooms. The owner of this house probably didn't like to study very much. The books were placed messily without any classification. There were bamboo books and paper books. The order of the books was all out of order. Many of them were eaten by termites. However, these ancient books were very important to the study of history. What they needed to do was to organize them according to different dynasties and eras. The missing pages or damaged pages would be filled in as much as possible. The ones that couldn't be filled in would be marked properly. Later, they would ask the Hanlin Academy's 5 classic scholars and scholars for advice. There were 4 editors and 2 editors in the library pavilion. Yang Xiuzhu thought there were enough people. After all, there were only 2 study rooms. However, when he entered the room, he was completely dumbfounded. Was this really a study room? Was this really a storage room? The bookshelves and cabinets were all over the place. Books were scattered all over the floor. The previous servants had probably tidied them up and put them in baskets. However, they didn't know how to read and put them in a mess. Yang Xiuzhu was in a terrible fix. He hated that he didn't bring more people over. Royal Princeton also had a headache. The Hanlin Academy scholar reminded him that the task might be a bit heavy. However, he didn't expect it to be this heavy. He held his forehead and sighed. Official Yang, let's move all the books out first and tidy up the room. Yes. Yu Heng is right. Yang Xiuzhu didn't forget to curry favor with him. He quickly agreed with a smile on his face. He turned to Xiao Lulang. His smile instantly turned cold. Why are you standing there? Hurry up and move the books. Xiao Lulang and an editor surnamed Sun went to the west room. The west room wasn't facing well. It was sunny in the afternoon and the weather was hot. It was like a steamer. The cooler east room was naturally given to Yang Xiuzhu and Royal Prince, and Yang Xiuzhu wouldn't let Royal Prince tire himself out. He mainly ordered another editor to work. Commandery Prince wanted to move the baskets. Yang Xiuzhu stopped him and said with a smile, "Let them do this. Yu Heng, you go outside and dry the books. Drying books was relatively easy. They only needed to put the books one by one on the bench under the porch, on the stone table in the courtyard, or on the ground. Royal Prince and did not purposely pretend to be a sensible junior. Everyone was born different. He was born superior to others and he had paid a huge price for this. People who weren't born as noble as him wouldn't have to leave their homes and become a hostage in an enemy country at the age of 8. Therefore, there was nothing to decline. Royal Prince and naturally accepted Yang Xiuju's arrangement. Yang Xiu was mainly in charge of directing at the scene, and occasionally helped Royal Prince to dry his books. Xiao Liulong's legs were inconvenient, so his movements were slower. Editor Tsin, who was assigned to the same room as him, was a scholar from 3 years ago. When the library closed this year, he entered the Hanlin Academy as an editor. He was also a newcomer, but he was a few months earlier than Xiao Lulang, Royal Prince and Ning Ziyuan. Of course, he knew that Xiao Lulang was the new top scholar. However, this top scholar seemed to have offended the second place. Even the third place scholar, Ning Ziyuan, had a better life than him. Editor Tsin curled his lips in annoyance. How unlucky, why am I assigned to the same room as you? Xiao Lulang didn't say anything. He silently picked up the books on the ground and put them into the baskets. They worked for the whole afternoon. Even Royal Princeton, who was only responsible for drying the books, felt his back ache. However, they had only finished half of the work. They had moved the books out, but they hadn't put them in the baskets yet. You two clean the room first. Yang Xiuju ordered Xiao Lulang and Editor Xian. You clean the east room, you clean the west room. Editor Tsin didn't dare to disobey. Between the two rooms, he chose the east room, which was relatively cooler. Xiao Lulang didn't fight with him. Editor Tsin didn't feel grateful. Instead, he sneered at Xiao Lulang. If I wasn't assigned to the same room as you, I wouldn't be so unlucky. These words were a bit too much. Xiao Lulang was a 6th-rank editor. His official position was higher than his. Today, whether Xiao Lulang came or not, he would have to do the dirtiest and most tiring work. After all, they were both 7th-rank editors. They couldn't let the noble Royal Princeton do it. Why would Royal Princeton care about a 7th-rank minor official? It wasn't because the Zhuang family had grandparents and grandchildren. All the descendants of the Zhuang family had to take the imperial exam and enter the government. They couldn't be officials. Royal Princeton wouldn't waste his talent like this. Editor Tsin didn't have the guts to complain about Royal Princeton, so he vented his anger on Xiao Lulang, who was always being bullied. Xiao Lulang was too lazy to pay attention to him. He took a broom and went to clean the west room. The west room was bigger and messier than the east room. He first straightened the bookcases and shelves. His body was much stronger than it was a year ago. If he was still the little sickly boy who fainted by the roadside from hunger, he wouldn't be able to move these shelves. The young man's body faintly emitted a vigorous masculine strength. His sleeves were gently rolled up. The muscles on his forearms were firm, and the lines were distinct. Sweat dripped down his delicate chin. Royal Princeton was resting outside. He inadvertently glanced at the window of the west room. Even though he was a man, he was almost dazzled at that moment. Xiao Lulang finished cleaning the west room. He was surprised to find that this room actually had an attic. The ladder was behind the last row of bookshelves. He rubbed the ladder and looked around. There were also books in the attic. However, probably because it was too hidden, no one had touched it. Other than being covered in dust, it wasn't too messy. Xiao Lulang decided to move the books in first. He would clean up the attic later. Move the books in. It's going to rain. Xiao Lulang went out and said to the others. Royal Princeton looked at the gloomy sky and frowned. Why didn't he notice it earlier? He even spread the books out so much. It was troublesome to put them away. Then hurry up and clean up, he said. However, Xiao Lulang finished cleaning the west room. Editor Tsin's east room was only half cleaned. How did you do it? You still haven't cleaned such a small room. Yang Xiu scolded Editor San. After scolding, he said to Xiao Lulang, go help him clean it up. They originally had 2 coachmen. However, the roof was leaking and the coachman went to fix the roof. They couldn't free themselves now. Xiao Lulang went to the east room. Editor Tsin glared at him indignantly. You did it on purpose, didn't you? You deliberately made me look bad in front of official Yang. What did this have to do with Xiao Lulang? Xiao Lulang worked quickly, because he wasn't like most scholars who only studied. Other than the heavy work that Gu Jiao didn't allow him to do, he did everything else. Was this also his fault? Xiao Lulang said indifferently. Use your time to throw a tantrum on sweeping. The east room has already been cleaned. You, Editor Tsin choked. After the east room was cleaned, they moved the books in. Just as they finished moving the last basket, it started to drizzle. At this time, the roof was also repaired. They let out a sigh of relief. Next, they had to organize the books. At this point, Yang Xiu didn't bully anyone. He, Royal Princeton, and another editor organized the books in the east room. Xiao Lulang, Editor Tsin, and another editor organized the books in the west room. The rain gradually became heavier. The summer heat was washed away and the temperature dropped. The west room wasn't as hot as it used to be. They buried their heads in their work and were all very serious. Xiao Lulang was a newcomer, so the task he was given wasn't heavy. After he finished organizing the 2 rows of bookshelves in front of him, he remembered the attic above. He took a rag and an oil lamp and climbed up the ladder to the attic. The books in the attic didn't look messy, but when he looked carefully, they were all in the wrong category. He hung up the oil lamp and cleaned up the dust. Then he organized the books one by one. There were no pens or paper in the attic. When he encountered a damaged book, he first put it aside and repaired it later. He was so engrossed in his work that he didn't notice that it was getting late. When he was alerted by a pain in his back, he decided to go down for a walk. Only then did he realize that the room was already dark. It was drizzling outside. He carried the oil lamp and walked in the silent room. Is anyone here? He asked. What answered him was the sound of the rain. Xiao Lulang carried the oil lamp and walked around the courtyard. In the end, he made sure that everyone had left and the front door was locked. Xiao Lulang went to the back door. As expected, the back door was also locked. Although there was no gold or silver in here, they were worried that thieves would come in and destroy the ancient books in the study. Therefore, when they left, they would lock it from the outside. On the way here, Xiao Lulang had observed the terrain. This house was at the foot of Mount Yueluo. The nearest house was a tea shed about a mile away. The tea shed only did business during the day. At night, they returned to the village. It seems that I can't go back tonight. Xiao Lulang looked at the pattering rain. Something flashed through his mind. He frowned, sighed, and turned to step into the corridor. The house had been empty for a long time, so naturally, there was nothing to eat. Fortunately, Ning Ziyuan gave him a bowl of yangchun noodles at noon, so he wasn't hungry yet. He was almost out of the oil lamp. He went to the east room and got the oil lamp there. Since he had nothing to do, Xiao Lulang began to organize the books. Because of the heavy workload, they had only organized less than a third of the books. They hadn't even begun to repair the damaged ancient books. Xiao Lulang had been at the Hanlin Academy for less than a month. His good historiography was actually thanks to Elder Feng. Elder Feng had left him many history books in the collection. Emperor Huizong rode his horse to the North Yen Pass. He wanted to cross the Yen River. Xiao Lulang had been lucky enough to read this part in Elder Feng's book. It was about the second emperor of the previous dynasty, Emperor Wen Huizong, who had personally led the army. The weather was bad that day, so it was not suitable to cross the river. Wen Huizong didn't listen to advice and insisted on going. Fortunately, a fisherwoman risked her life to stop him. In the latter half of the night, the rain poured down, the Yen River swelled, and the whirlpool didn't stop. Wen Huizong sighed with emotion that he and the 3 armies had escaped disaster. After returning, Wen Huizong disregarded the opposition of the court and resolutely made the fisherwoman his concubine. It was supposed to be a beautiful story, but the fisherwoman's ending was not so lucky. There were 3,000 beauties in the harem, but only the new ones smiled, not the old ones cried. The fisherwoman had not seen the emperor since the 3rd year she entered the palace. She grew old in the depths of the palace, and before she died, she left behind a piece of Ode to the North Yen Pass to express her loneliness and bitterness. What was missing was the Ode to the North Yen Pass. Xiao Lulang picked up his brush and added the Ode to the North Yen Pass. The next day, a servant who was guarding the house came to the house. He was guarding the house for the original owner, and only came once every 3 to 5 days. It had rained last night, and he was worried that the roof would leak again, so he came to take a look. He first went to the east study. Who would have thought that as soon as he entered he would see a person lying on the desk? He was so frightened that he fell to the ground. A ghost? It was no wonder that he thought the other party was a ghost. The door was locked, so who else could come in except for ghosts? Xiao Lulang was awakened by his shout, and the head that was pressed against his arm slowly lifted. It was a face that was perfect and impeccable even though there were marks on it. The servant was stunned. How was this a ghost? He was clearly an immortal. Furthermore, the room was so clean. What else could it be but an immortal spell? Although the people from the imperial court might come to clean it up, he had only been here yesterday morning. How could those delicate officials have cleaned it up? Xiao Lulang finished tidying up the books in the west room last night. Seeing that it was still dark, he tidied up the books in the east room as well. He only went to sleep when it was almost dawn. What time is it? Xiao Lulang sat up straight, tidied his clothes and asked calmly. The servant said in a daze, "Chin 6:45." Xiao Lulang frowned. It's already so late. Hanlin Academy was on duty at 7 a.m. Xiao Lulang looked at him. Is there a carriage nearby? The servant said, yes, there's one in the tea shed. Immortal, young master, do you need a carriage? Xiao Lulang opened his pouch, took out a silver pellet, and handed it to him. Please help me hire a carriage. Okay. The servant stepped forward, took the silver pellet with both hands, and went out to hire a carriage for Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang stood up and planned to go to the backyard to get some water to wash up. When the servant turned around, he happened to see Xiao Lulang coming out of the east room with a cane. He was stunned. Xiao Lulang took the carriage back to the capital. He wasn't the only one in the carriage. There were 2 other peddlers going to the capital. They had hired the carriage first, so he had to send them off first. The place they were going to was not far from Hanlin Academy, so Xiao Lulang went directly to Hanlin Academy. As soon as he entered Hanlin Academy, Ning Ziyuan hurried over. Lulang, where did you go? You came to Hanlin Academy so late. Don't you know that you'll get a demerit for being late? Young Xiuwen was so angry just now. He's gone out now. Xiao Lulang said. I didn't do it on purpose. They didn't call me when they came back last night. Wait, did you say Yang Xiuwen was angry? Ning Ziyuan said. Yes, he said, what's wrong with you? Do you think you're so great just because you're the new top scorer? Oh, why didn't they call you when they came back? Xiao Lulang was about to answer when Editor Tsin came out of the office with a few books in his arms. When he saw Xiao Lulang, he stopped in his tracks. Then his eyes flashed, and he lowered his eyes guiltily, pretending not to see Xiao Lulang as he walked past. Ning Ziyuan wasn't familiar with Editor Tsin, and he didn't know about the discord between him and Xiao Lulang, so he didn't notice Editor Tsin's strange behavior. However, he noticed Xiao Liulang's gaze on Editor Tsin. Lulang, what's wrong with you? Ning Ziyuan asked. Nothing. Xiao Lulang looked away and said to Ning Ziyuan, you can go back to work. There were too many people here, and Xiao Lulang was ostracized, so Ning Ziyuan didn't dare to get too close to him. It wasn't easy for him to get to where he was today. Everyone had their own rules of survival. Xiao Lulang would rather break than be gay, but Ning Ziyuan could be gay, but he would keep his bottom line in his heart. After Ning Ziyuan left, Xiao Lulang returned to his office. Editor Tsin quietly opened the door to his office, stuck his head out, and looked at Xiao Liulang's office. There were so many people yesterday, so Xiao Lulang shouldn't have suspected him for no reason. However, once a person did something wrong, they would easily feel guilty. He always felt that Xiao Lulang would rush over and question him in the next second. In fact, Yang Xiozhua had asked Xiao Lulang last night. At that time, everyone was so tired that they couldn't even move their fingers. Yang Xiozhua, Commandery Princeton, and Lu Xiozhua got into the carriage in front. He, Xiao Lulang, and Wang Xiozhua were in the same carriage. Yang Xiozhua's carriage left first. Before leaving, Yang Xiuzhua asked him to call Xiao Lulang. He agreed. He knew that Xiao Lulang was in the attic. He didn't call him. Wang Xiuzhua thought that Xiao Lulang went to Yang Xiuzhua's office, so he didn't ask. At that time he didn't think too much. He just wanted to teach Xiao Lulang a lesson. Who told him to be unlucky? However, Yang Xiuzhua was so angry this morning. He was afraid that when Yang Xiuzhua confronted Xiao Lulang, he would be exposed. Forget it. At worst, he could say that Xiao Lulang was hiding in the attic and he didn't see him. He thought that Xiao Lulang left early. In order to make this statement more convincing, he went to Wang Xiuzhua's bank and asked him, Wang Xiuzhua, do you remember that Xiao Lulang left early yesterday afternoon? Wang Xiuzhua was stunned. He's not here? I didn't notice. Sun Xiuzhua said. I noticed. He left after working for a while. Wang Xiuzhua thought carefully. It seemed that after the sky darkened, he didn't see Xiao Lulang again. Until the end of the day, Xiao Lulang didn't see Yang Xiuzhua. Xiao Lulang left Hanlin Academy. Kong Mu, who was in charge of the roll call, suddenly stopped Xiao Lulang and said, Your family came last night. They said they were your wife. She asked where you went. I said you went with Yang Xiuzhua to work outside the city. Xiao Lulang nodded. Many thanks. Yang Xiuzhua hadn't finished organizing the books last night. He had rushed over early in the morning after finishing his work. He and Xiao Lulang didn't go the same way, so they missed each other perfectly. However, when Yang Xiuzhua arrived at the library, he found that the mess from last night had already been cleaned up. Yang Xiuzhua was confused. What's going on? Who tidied it up? Or did they finish it when I took a nap in the carriage yesterday? Yang Xiuzhua picked up a few baskets of important books and brought them back to Hanlin Academy. After Scholar Han read through them, he was full of praise. Not bad. You did a good job. Several of the 5 classic scholars also browsed through the books. These books were all important documents of great value to the study of history, especially the section related to the previous dynasties when Huizong. Even the complete version couldn't be found in Hanlin Academy's library. Scholar Han picked out a few books and sent them to the cabinet. He had them look through them and see if there were any mistakes. Grand Secretary Yuan was also there. He focused on the ode to the north of Yan. This ode had been lost for hundreds of years. Many scholars had spent their entire lives trying to restore it. Even he had tried before. However, after consulting all the documents, he could only restore the first small section. He thought this ode would have 500 words at most. He didn't expect there to be over 1,000 words. How much effort did this take? Grand Secretary Yuan looked at it, as if he was looking at a rare treasure. Even the movements of his hands became lighter. Scholar Han couldn't tell whether it was them who restored it, or the previous owner of the library. After all, there were many traces of restoration in the library. Some of the traces were even very new. However, Grand Secretary Yuan could tell that the handwriting was made within 3 days. Scholar Han thought for a moment and said, That must be Princeton. I heard from Yang Xiuzhua that it was all thanks to him this time. If it weren't for him, this time wouldn't have gone so smoothly. Among the people accompanying them, Yang Xiuzhua only emphasized Princeton. He didn't mention Xiao Lulang at all. Grand Secretary Yuan paused. Are you talking about the grandson of Grand Secretary Zhuang? That prince who is only 18 years old? Scholar Han nodded. Right, that's him. Even though he is a prince, he has never considered himself a prince in Hanlin Academy. Yesterday, when I went to organize these books, he also didn't complain about the hard work, not uttering a single word of complaint. Grand Secretary Yuan remained silent for a moment. He stroked his beard. Grand Secretary Zhuang has obtained a good grandson. After pausing for a moment, he then said, Could you leave these books here for me to admire for a few days? Scholar Han cupped his hands and said with a smile, Grand Secretary, sir, you can look at them for as long as you want. There is no need to rush. Scholar Han brought the books here precisely for Grand Secretary Yuan to admire. If he didn't like to look at them, then he would have come for nothing. Moreover, to be able to obtain Grand Secretary Yuan's favor was such an honor. Even though Grand Secretary Yuan didn't like to play with power like Grand Secretary Zhuang, His influence in the court was definitely not something Grand Secretary Zhuang could suppress. Grand Secretary Zhuang would rather offend Marquis Xianping than offend Grand Secretary Yuan. Similarly, Marquis Xianping had insulted all of the court's civil and military officials, but he had never insulted Grand Secretary Yuan. This was an elder of 3 dynasties who stood above the vortex of power. He had assisted 3 emperors. Even Empress Dowager Zhuang would get off the sedan chair for him when she saw him. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/112318467. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikaga mobile reading website. Chapter 294. This book's newest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. An old official like Grand Secretary Yuan didn't need any meaningless social interactions. It was fine even if he didn't go. After the end of the day, Grand Secretary Yuan read a few books before returning to the Yuan Manor. Old Madame Yuan was born into a scholarly family in Jiangnan. The manor was built under her supervision, so it was like a small Jiangnan garden. Grand Secretary Yuan had never taken a concubine in his life, and none of his sons took a concubine either. Only after his second daughter-in-law passed away in childbirth did his second son remarry. In the garden, a blue-clothed little Taoist nun was absent-mindedly reading a book. It wasn't some scripture, but rather a novel she found in a small study room. At her side, a purple-clothed girl was using a net made of spider silk and bamboo strips to catch butterflies. When she saw Grand Secretary Yuan walk over, the purple-clothed girl's eyes lit up. She handed the bamboo net in her hands to her accompanying maid, and then she raised her skirt, running over without any regard for her image. Grandpa, you're back." Grand Secretary Yuan felt a headache when he saw his little granddaughter run like crazy. "Don't run, be careful not to fall." "I definitely won't fall." The purple-clothed girl stopped in front of him and gave him a proper greeting. Then she intimately grabbed his arm. Grandpa, why did you come back so late today?" Grand Secretary Yuan said. "I was reading a book for a while." "Oh." The purple-clothed girl clearly wasn't interested in books, so she didn't ask any further. Grand Secretary Yuan's eyes landed on the little Taoist nun on the stone bench. The little Taoist nun seemed to have sensed his sizing up. She slowly put down the book and gave him a proper Taoist priest greeting. "Benefactor Yuan." "Grand Secretary Yuan." Grand Secretary Yuan slowly sighed. "You still haven't returned to the secular world?" The little Taoist nun said. "I haven't." Grand Secretary Yuan looked at the novel in her hands. "If you haven't returned to the secular world, how can you read these romantic books?" "Oh." The little Taoist nun was silent for a moment. Her expression didn't change as she said. "In Benefactor Yuan's eyes, these are romantic books, but in this poor's eyes, they are a world of their own." Grand Secretary Yuan. "All right, stop saying strange things." The purple-clothed girl had a headache. One was her elder sister, and the other was her grandfather. If they were separated, she would be able to understand what they were saying. But when the two of them were talking, she couldn't understand a single word. Grand Secretary Yuan. "If you have the ability, don't eat meat at night." Immeasurable Celestial Venerable. The little nun curtsied with a pious expression. Wine and meat pass through the intestines, but the Celestial Venerable's heart remains. Grand Secretary Yuan was speechless again. Grand Secretary Yuan was ultimately defeated, leaving with a dark face. Who would have thought that Grand Tutor Yuan, who even Grand Tutor Zhuang couldn't subdue, would be defeated by a little granddaughter? To put it bluntly, he still doted on her. This granddaughter was born with bad fortune and almost died. Old Madame Yuan found a Taoist priest to read her fortune, saying that she had to be raised in a Taoist temple under the protection of the immeasurable Tianzuan, so that she could grow up safely. Grand Secretary Yuan didn't believe this at first, but old Madame Yuan insisted on sending the child to the Taoist temple. That child really did get better, but as soon as he was brought back, he fell ill again a few days later. After repeating this a few times, the child was finally able to live in the Taoist temple. It was only when she turned 16 that she was brought back. Father. Grand Secretary Yuan's eldest son saw him outside the courtyard and curtsied. You've come back late today. Did something happen in the inner court? It's not official business. Grand Secretary Yuan waved his hand and walked into the courtyard. He sat down on a chair with an official's hat in the central room. A maid served him tea. He drank a mouthful of tea, and then slowly said to his eldest son, Baolin isn't young anymore. It's time to discuss marriage, right? Yuan Pei chuckled and said, It is time to discuss marriage. Father, do you have a suitable candidate in mind? Grand Secretary Yuan paused. Originally, I didn't. Then he did now? Yuan Pei looked towards his father expectantly. Grand Secretary Yuan said, That child from the Zhuang family isn't bad. Zhuang family? That Grand Tutor Zhuang family? His family's young master of the right age. Yuan Pei ran through the names in his mind, and then he was shocked. The new second-ranked royal princein? Grand Secretary Yuan nodded. Yuan Pei pondered. That child isn't bad indeed. He had a reputation for being virtuous, and he was smart and motivated. When he was 8 years old, he was taken hostage in Qin country, yet he didn't cry or make a fuss. The fact that he could return alive was enough to prove his ability. This type of man was rarely seen in the world, but he was indeed worthy of their family's Baolin. Yuan Pei was confused. Father, weren't you unwilling to form a marriage alliance with these aristocratic families? It was Grand Secretary Yuan's principle to not get involved in the struggles of the imperial court. He was only loyal to Zhao country. Grand Secretary Yuan didn't give a complicated answer. He only said this after careful consideration. That child is more outstanding than I imagined. The little Taoist nun still didn't know that her marriage had already been targeted by her grandfather. She was dragged out of the Yuan estate by her younger sister. The purple-clothed girl tugged at her. Older sister, hurry up. There's a lantern festival today. There's a lot of people. If we're late, we won't be able to squeeze in. The little Taoist nun helplessly rolled her eyes. She only wanted to read the novels. Had the princess discovered the mistress that the prince consort kept outside? Has the switch child been recognized by the princess or not? Also, the princess's widow's best friend had slept with the prince consort thousands of times. When would the princess finally recognize this vixen's true colors? The novels these days were becoming more and more excessive. They were so heart-wrenching. The Lantern Festival was on Chong and Main Street. There weren't many people at the moment, but it would be hard to say in a while. All right, right here. The purple-clothed girl called for the carriage to stop. She grabbed the little Taoist nun's hand and jumped off. She was in too much of a hurry, so she didn't notice a carriage coming out of an alley to the side. The little Taoist nun did notice it, but they were too close for the purple-clothed girl to slowly hide. She pulled the purple-clothed girl back. In a bit of a hurry, she used too much strength and dragged the purple-clothed girl from one side to the other. Then the purple-clothed girl bumped into someone. She lost her balance and fell to the ground with the other person. Her elbow coincidentally landed on the softest part of the other party's abdomen. It was really painful. The other person was caught off guard. The pain made their entire face contort. The purple-clothed girl didn't feel too much pain because she was on top of the other person. However, when she came back to her senses, she discovered that the other person was actually a man. She had actually fallen together with a man in broad daylight. The color drained from her face. She raised her hand and slapped the other person. Lecher. The other person was stunned. He stared at her in disbelief. Are you kidding me? You were the one who bumped into me. You're hurting my stomach. I haven't even gotten even with you yet. The purple-clothed girl quickly got up from his body and wrapped her arms around her shoulders. She stared at him vigilantly and angrily. Forget what? Forget it if you have the guts. I am warning you. Don't think you can take advantage of me just because you touched me. If you dare tell anyone about what happened today, I'll kill you. I'm going to kill you. I'm the one who wants to kill you. The young man jumped up, his eyes filled with killing intent. The little Taoist nun stood in front of the purple-clothed girl and stared at him coldly. It was at this moment that a deep voice came from behind the young man. What are you doing? Come back. The young man glared at the purple-clothed girl, then unwillingly returned to the man's side. The man cupped his hands in salute to the little Taoist nun and the purple-clothed girl. My apologies. My younger brother offended you. The young man pointed at the purple-clothed girl. It wasn't me. It was her. Not to be outdone, the purple-clothed girl pointed back. It was you. The little Taoist nun looked at the handsome man and asked, Who are you? Gu Changqing. Gu Changqing gave it some thought and didn't try to hide it. His identity was useful in the capital. At the very least, the Gu family wasn't filled with perverts. Oh, the little Taoist nun said. I've never heard of you. She had just left the mountain, so she hadn't heard of him. She turned to the purple-clothed girl. Yuan Tong, come here. Hi, you're called Cylinder? Gu Qingfeng threw his head back and laughed. Are you a Yi brand? You're called Cylinder? Ha ha ha. Why don't you call yourself Ertiao? Gu Changqing said sternly. Qingfeng, shut up. This time, it was Yuan Tong's turn to laugh. She put her hands on her hips and looked at Gu Qingfeng mockingly. So you're a hornet. No wonder you're so annoying. Yuan Tong, Cylinder. Gu Qingfeng, Bumblebee. Cylinder. Hornet. The two of them were red in the face. Go back and tell grandfather if you make any more noise. Go back and tell grandfather if you make any more noise. The first sentence was said by Gu Changqing, and the second by the little Taoist nun. Both of them said it almost at the same time. Their words were so intimidating that Yuan Tong and Gu Qingfeng shut their mouths at the same time. Their mouths were shut, but their eyes were still open. The two of them rolled their eyes at each other. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/112315825. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 295. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. This farce didn't last long because the Lantern Festival had begun. Yuan Tong didn't have the time to argue with this big wasp and dragged her sister to the festival. She's really too much. Are women nowadays so unreasonable? Gu Qingfeng touched his crushed stomach and then touched his face. Yuan Tong was a little girl who didn't know martial arts. That slap wasn't too strong, but it was to embarrass Gu Qingfeng. The real pain was in his waist. Could a man's stomach be crushed here? Would it still work in the future? I suspect it's all bruised, Gu Qingfeng muttered bitterly. Gu Changqing looked at him lightly and said, How old are you? 18. 19. What's wrong? He was the same age as Xiao Lulang, but the months were different. Now he was 18 years old and 19 years old. But Gu Changqing didn't say anything and only gave him a look. Gu Qingfeng didn't feel that he was in the wrong. He was the one who was hit, but he was slapped for no reason. Who could he reason with? Gu Changqing ignored him and turned to walk towards Jade Water Alley. Those who grew up in the capital knew the Lantern Festival like the back of their hand. In a while, Chang and Main Street would be so congested that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Gu Chongqing looked at Gu Chengfeng, who was following behind him, and asked, "Aren't you here to watch the Lantern Festival? Why aren't you going?" Gu Chongqing went to see Gu Yan and Gu Chengfeng went to watch the Lantern Festival. The two of them were going the same way, so they walked together. Gu Chengfeng snorted. "I was going to watch the Lantern Festival, but that Yuan Tong is also going there. I don't want to meet her. Whoever meets her will be unlucky." "Be careful with your words," Gu Chongqing said sternly. Gu Chengfeng pursed his lips. Speaking of morals, Gu Chengfeng was actually not as good as his younger brother, Gu Chenglin. Gu Chenglin was spoiled by his family, but his words and actions outside were still very much like a noble young master. If Gu Chenglin was slapped by this girl today, he would probably choke until his face turned red, and he wouldn't be able to say a single word. Gu Chongqing didn't say anything else. If Gu Chengfeng wanted to follow, then so be it. Gu Yan's body was fine, and he had already moved back from the old chancellor's place. However, for the time being, he didn't go to Qinghe Academy to study, nor did he go to Nanxiang and Master Lu's place to learn skills. Gu Jiao and the others were not there. Only little Jing Kong came back from the Imperial College. He was holding his personal bucket in one hand, and his personal paddle in the other. He was carefully watering the recipes in the front yard. After watering, he would put the chicks in to catch insects in the vegetable field. Little Jing Kong stopped watering when he heard the door being pushed open. He turned around and said excitedly, "Big brother, you're here." "Jing Kong." Gu Chongqing nodded and stepped over the threshold. Gu Chengfeng also walked in. He didn't come to Qingshui Alley many times. What left the deepest impression was that he was anesthetized and thrown on the bed and witnessed a bloody and terrible operation with his own eyes. He couldn't eat meat until now. This big brother is here too. Little Jing Kong had seen Gu Chengfeng in the medical center before. However, he didn't know his name, so he called him Big Brother. It was every doctor's professional ethics to not ask about the patient's privacy. Jiao Jiao was a doctor, but he was also a junior doctor. He had successfully saved a handsome uncle. Gu Chengfeng hummed. He looked at the little guy who shaved Gu Chenglin's hair into a yin-yang hairstyle. In fact, there was still a little shadow in his heart. However, it was undeniable that the little guy was really good-looking. "I'll help you," Gu Chongqing said to little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong thought for a while and said, "Okay." Jiao Jiao said that sometimes you don't need a person's help to accept it. It's okay to like it. He liked Big Brother. The water in the small wooden bucket was almost gone. There was still half a dish to be watered, so Gu Chongqing went to the backyard to get water. He passed the gifts he had brought for them to little Jing Kong along the way. Little Jing Kong held the big bag in his arms and looked at Gu Chengfeng with his head tilted. Gu Chengfeng was embarrassed by his gaze. He touched the bridge of his nose and said to him, "Then I'll help you too. Is there any other work to be done?" Little Jing Kong nodded. His eyes were shining. He pointed his finger and said, "There's a small bucket over there too." Little Jing Kong brought Gu Chengfeng to another small bucket. Then his fair and handsome face suddenly darkened. Why was his big brother carrying water? It was his turn to carry feces. Gu Chengfeng resisted the urge to roll his eyes and said, "Why did you pick this thing?" Little Jing Kong said seriously, "To fertilize it. The better the fertilizer, the fatter the vegetables." The standard to determine if the fertilizer was good was, Gu Chengfeng didn't dare to think further. Originally, he just couldn't eat meat. From now on, he couldn't eat vegetables as well? What kind of hatred and resentment did he have with this house in Jade Water Alley? If it happened again, he wouldn't even need to drink water anymore. He wanted to help the little monk, so he had to help him even if he had to cry. Gu Chengfeng, the noble young master, finally understood what it meant to make a life worse than death. Gu Chongqing went to Gu Yan's room. Gu Yan had just woken up from his sleep. He was sitting in front of the window in a daze. A tuft of hair on the top of his head stood up restlessly. Perhaps it was because of the rain last night, but the weather today wasn't hot. There was a cool breeze, which was very comfortable for Gu Chongqing. But it was a bit cold for Gu Yan. He sat there in thin clothes. At first glance, he looked like a helpless little boy. Actually, he was just waking up from his sleep. However, in Gu Changqing's eyes, he was sad because of something. Was it because of Tang Ming? Or was it because of him? Gu Changqing wasn't sure. A layer of apprehension surged in his heart. He wanted to go over and put some clothes on him, but he was worried that he would hate him and not want to see him. "You're here." It was Yao Shi's voice. Yao Shi had just gone to the kitchen to make a plate of pastries for Gu Yan. She didn't see Gu Changqing in the front yard, who was being squeezed dry by little Jing Kong. She wasn't surprised by Gu Changqing's appearance. "I heard that something happened in the army camp a while ago. Are you okay?" Yao Shi asked. This was the first time she, as his stepmother, openly showed concern for Gu Changqing after he grew up. When she first married into the Marquis's household, she naively thought that she could raise 3 children, even if it wasn't what she wanted. But she was already married. She didn't think of running away. But the result was obvious. "I'm fine," Gu Changqing replied politely. Hearing his voice, Gu Yan finally reacted. He reflexively turned around. Gu Changqing noticed his movements from the corner of his eyes and hurriedly looked over, as if he wanted to see his expression. But Gu Yan didn't know if it was because he suddenly thought of something, but he turned his head back halfway. Gu Changqing felt a wave of disappointment. Yao Shi looked at Gu Yan and lowered her eyes to smile. She handed the plate of pastries in her hand to Gu Changqing. "I suddenly remembered that I still have a set of clothes that I haven't finished making. Help me give it to Yan." Gu Changqing was hesitating whether or not to refuse, but Yao Shi had already stuffed the plate of pastries into his hands. Gu Changqing looked at Yao Shi's back as she walked away. He suddenly felt that if he didn't have so many prejudices in the past and didn't misbelieve the rumors, Yao Shi might really have been a very gentle and understanding stepmother. It was just that his relationship with Yao Shi couldn't be repaired to its ideal state. But between him and Gu Yan, he squeezed his fingers. He didn't want to give up. He knocked on the open door. "I'm coming in." Gu Yan didn't say anything. He only moved his small body forward, silently expressing his resistance. Gu Changqing came to his side and placed a stack of delicious mung bean cakes in front of him. "It's still hot. Eat it while it's hot." Gu Yan didn't eat it. Gu Changqing turned his head and opened the wardrobe. He took out a long gown and put it on him. Gu Yan grabbed the long gown and threw it on the floor without any trace of politeness. If it was said that he had only been testing and guessing before, then Gu Changqing was almost certain that Gu Yan was angry at him. He didn't feel that he had done anything to make Gu Yan angry. If there was anything, it would be the night he was lured out of the military camp by the assassins. His slovenly appearance had offended Gu Yan. But Gu Yan wasn't such an unreasonable child. So Gu Changqing took a deep breath. A guess that he didn't want to face and didn't want to think about flashed through his mind. "Did you?" He closed his eyes. In the end, he didn't ask those few words. If he could go back in time, he wouldn't have rejected the child who hid behind the tree and secretly watched him practice swordsmanship. He wouldn't have deliberately thrown away his handkerchief. He wouldn't have been indifferent when he needed him the most. He wouldn't have vented his father's anger on him. He wouldn't have neglected him. He wouldn't have hurt him. He wouldn't have. There were too many things that he wouldn't have done. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/112291435. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikaga mobile reading website. Chapter 296. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Yao Shi went to the front yard to collect chili peppers and saw Gu Chengfeng sweating in the vegetable field. Yao Shi was slightly startled and thought she had mistaken him for someone else. But she quickly dismissed the idea. It was indeed Gu Qingfeng. Strange, why is he here? And he's doing work here? Little Jing Kong said seriously. You can't just water one place. It has to be evenly distributed. Every vegetable needs to be irrigated with fertilizer. Little Jing Kong asked him to do it. They know each other? Gu Qingfeng was about to tell Little Jing Kong to do it when he turned around and saw Yao Shi. Their eyes met. The two of them were speechless. At dusk, Xiao Lulang finished his duty at Hanlin Academy. Lin Qingye and Feng Lin also finished their studies at Hanlin Academy. Lulang. Feng Lin jumped down from the carriage and called him. After Feng Lin finished his studies at the Imperial College, he couldn't continue to live in the Imperial College's dormitory. The price of living in the capital was high and so were the houses. Fortunately, he knew Lin Qingye, the little rich man. He was now living in Lin Qingye's house and paid Lin Qingye some rent every month. The two of them went to class during the day and studied together at night. They learned a lot. Although Hanlin Academy was part of Hanlin Academy, it was different from Hanlin Academy's officials. In the past, the three of them never met. You're so early today. Didn't those people arrange anything for you? Feng Lin asked. The main purpose of Feng Lin and the other scholars was to study, so they didn't have much work to do. However, Xiao Lulang was going to be an official, so it was different. Moreover, Xiao Lulang was a newcomer. It was normal for him to be asked to do odd jobs. Ning Ziyuan was also often asked to do odd jobs. Except for Princeton, who had a strong background, everyone in Hanlin Academy respected him and didn't dare to order him around. Yes, I don't have anything to do today, Xiao Lulang said. Lulang will send you back. Lin Qingye stuck his head out of the car window and said. Although Lin Qingye had not completely recovered from his stuttering, he was still very happy that he could occasionally spit out 3 words. This was all thanks to Feng Lin. Feng Lin would practice speaking with Lin Qingye every night. This was an inspiration given to him by Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao would help Xiao Lulang practice walking every night. Even after a day, Xiao Lulang did not show any signs of recovery. But Gu Jiao never gave up. Feng Lin was deeply touched. Of course, Xiao Lulang didn't give up on letting Gu Jiao practice her calligraphy every day, which made Gu Jiao go crazy. Xiao Lulang hadn't slept the whole night and hadn't eaten dinner the night before. He didn't have much of an appetite during the day, so he was really tired now. It would be hard for him to walk back alone. He got into the carriage. In order to keep a low profile, Lin Qingye chose a small carriage, but everything inside was filled with the extravagance of a nouveau riche. Lin Qingye was already used to it. Xiao Lulang was almost dazzled. The two of them gave the most comfortable seats to Xiao Lulang. To them, Xiao Lulang was both a teacher and a friend. Without Xiao Lulang, they wouldn't be where they were today. Lulang, you don't look so good. Have you been too tired recently? After all, Feng Lin wasn't in the inner circle of the Hanlin Academy, so he wasn't particularly clear about Xiao Liulang's situation. Plus, everyone knew that they were close to Xiao Lulang, so naturally, they wouldn't mention Xiao Lulang in front of them. Feng Lin only occasionally bumped into Ning Ziyuan in the restaurant and asked him a few questions. Xiao Lulang said, "Nothing. How's your study going?" At the mention of this, Feng Lin's attention was successfully diverted. He couldn't help but complain. I naively thought that after the imperial examinations, I wouldn't have to study anymore. At least, I wouldn't have to write 8-legged essays anymore. I didn't expect that after I stopped writing 8-legged essays, so much history, arithmetic, agriculture, astronomy. The content was similar to the content of the 3 cauldrons, but there was a difference in progress and depth. After all, they were all preparatory officials of the imperial court. Naturally, the direction of their studies was different. Their goal was no longer the imperial examinations, but the path of an official and the benefits of the country and the people. It would be best if they could do practical things for the people. The current Hanlin Academy was stricter than the previous dynasty. It was said that they would go to the countryside. It was just that they didn't know when it would be the turn of the new batch. When Xiao Lulang got home, Gu Jiao had just returned from the medical center. She carried a small basket on her back, and her small hands were under the basket. She walked casually, and her aura was somewhat unapproachable. Xiao Lulang inexplicably felt that her walking was a bit arrogant and naughty. He didn't know if she sensed something, but Gu Jiao calmly turned her head around. She probably didn't expect that Xiao Lulang would be behind her. There was a little annoyance that couldn't be removed from her face. Her small eyebrows were also tightly knitted together. The only thing missing was a few words written on her face. Don't provoke me. I am very annoyed. When Gu Jiao saw Xiao Lulang, she changed her expression in a second and put on an obedient expression. If being obedient didn't work, then being gentle would do too. Gu Jiao widened her eyes and did her best to show off her S-grade acting skills. Unfortunately, it was too late. Xiao Lulang saw everything that should have been seen. Oh, so she was like this in private? Xiao Lulang seemed to have discovered a new continent. He was stunned for a moment, and then he couldn't help but laugh softly. His stomach that had been hungry for a day and a night, his mind that had been tired the whole night, and his tiredness that had been busy the whole day, all disappeared in the evening breeze at this moment. Gu Jiao grabbed the straps of the small basket with both hands. She lowered her head and kicked the small pebbles on the ground with the tip of her foot. Don't laugh. You'll see a foul. Give it to me. Xiao Lulang walked over with his walking stick. He wanted to take the small basket on her back. No need, it's not heavy, Gu Jiao said. The last time she refused to help him carry something was when they went to buy candied haws in Little Jingkong. A familiar scene flashed through his mind. Xiao Liulang's expression changed slightly. His eyelashes trembled, and he slowly reached out to hold her small hand. His fingertips were so close that he could almost feel the heat on the back of her hand. Lulang is back. Jiao Jiao is back too. Auntie Lu suddenly walked out of her courtyard and looked at the two of them with a smile. Xiao Lulang quickly pulled back his hand that was about to touch Gu Jiao's fingertips. He greeted Auntie Lu without changing his expression. Auntie Lu. Gu Jiao looked at Auntie Lu with hidden bitterness. Auntie Lu felt a chill on her forehead. Aya, what's wrong with Jiaonyang today? She doesn't seem very happy. Auntie Lu hurriedly said to Xiao Lulang. Lulang, you hurry up and coax your wife. Is it because you didn't come back last night that you made her unhappy? Xiao Lulang couldn't help but smile. He tried his best to suppress the corners of his lips. It took him a lot of effort to keep a serious expression on his face. Last night, I went with the yamen to do my duty outside the city. He said this to Auntie Lu and also to Gu Jiao. Auntie Lu stood at the door and looked at the young couple lovingly. She had no intention of entering the house. Xiao Lulang was thin-skinned, old-fashioned, and serious. There was no chance of holding her hand. Gu Jiao walked away with a face full of hidden bitterness. The two of them entered the house. Gu Changqing and Gu Chengfeng were still there. It had rained last night, and the roof of Master Zhao's house had been damaged. He had originally planned to ask Gu Jiao to help fix it, but Gu Jiao had come to see him before the sun had risen. Master Zhao had come over again just now. After understanding the situation, Gu Changqing went to fix the roof for him. Master Zhao leaned against the wall of his house and chuckled. Jiao Jiao's mother, is that your eldest son? He's quite capable. Gu Changqing's hand that was reaching for the roof tile paused. He resisted the urge to turn around. Behind him came Madame Yao's voice that was as light as a breeze and as gentle as water. That's right. Dirty linen should not be aired in public. The relationship between Madame Yao and Gu Changqing was not something that outsiders could talk about. Even though he understood that Yao Shi's yes was not truly acknowledging him, Gu Changqing still let out a sigh of relief for no reason. On the other side, Gu Chengfeng was still fertilizing the vegetable garden. He was extremely conflicted and in pain. Little Jingkong had some free time. He sat on a stool with Little Eight in his arms to supervise the work. While supervising, he stroked Little Eight's fur. He still did not give up on his wish to turn his bad brother-in-law into Little Eight. His master had said that if he was sincere, it would work. Every day before he went to bed, he prayed to Buddha. He believed that there would be a day when Buddha would turn his bad brother-in-law into Little Eight and give it to him. Thinking of this, his heart was filled with longing. Aheng, Xiao Lulang, who had just crossed the threshold. Xiao Lulang was not shocked by Little Jingkong for too long. After all, There was an even more shocking fertilizing master, Gu Chengfeng. Madame Yao asked Xiao Lulang about last night's situation. Was it tiring? Xiao Lulang avoided the topic and said, "It wasn't tiring. I just tidied up the library and did some classification and document repairs." She told him to change his clothes and prepare to eat. She then said to little Jing Kong, "Jing Kong, go call the young master over to eat." Little Jing Kong put little 8 down and pattered away. Madame Yao went next door to call Gu Changqing. "Come over to eat first," she said. She paused for a moment and seemed to realize that her invitation was not in line with her relationship with Gu Changqing. She added, "You fix the roof for Master Zhao. If you don't fix it, you'll have to Jiao do it later." It turned out that she was thanking him for doing what Gu Jiao did. Okay. Gu Changqing finished fixing the roof and replaced the last tile, then came down from the roof. Master Zhao brought some fruit and pickled vegetables over and thanked the two. The pickled vegetables were made by home, so Madame Yao accepted it. She had Master Zhao leave the fruit for Xiaobao to eat. Gu Changqing watched her handle the neighborhood relationship with ease and could not help but think, if his mother was still alive, would she be like this? The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/112288801. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 297. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The next day, Xiao Lulang woke up early and went to Hanlin Academy. Hanlin Academy was very lively. From time to time, congratulations and laughter could be heard from another row of office rooms. Xiao Lulang didn't know what was going on at first. When Ning Ziyuan arrived, he whispered to him that Yang Xiuzhu had been promoted. Yang Xiuzhu's promotion was no secret, but he heard that it would be at the end of the year. "Do you know how he got promoted?" Ning Ziyuan asked. "How did you get promoted?" Xiao Lulang wasn't very interested in Yang Xiuzhu's story. He was just trying to satisfy Ning Ziyuan's curiosity. Let's talk over there." Ning Ziyuan pulled Xiao Lulang to the office room that was emitting the smell of ecstasy. Master Chen was transferred to the Ministry of Revenue early this morning, Ning Ziyuan said. It wasn't rare for the 6 ministries of the Imperial Court to transfer people from Hanlin Academy. Moreover, Attendant Chen had been chosen by the Minister of Revenue early on, and was going to be transferred to work under him. It was because he was going to be transferred that the position of Attendant Chen became vacant, allowing Yang Xiuzhu to be promoted. Master Chen was supposed to be transferred after the new year, but things just happened to be so coincidental. "I heard that your library has been organized extremely well. Some of the restored books even obtaining Grand Secretary Yuan's favor." Xiao Lulang organized and restored most of the books in the library, but not all of them. Yang Xiuzhu and Royal Prince and had also restored some of them. So Xiao Lulang and Shi Yi hadn't guessed that the restored books would be favored by Grand Secretary Yuan. Ning Ziyuan was even more clueless. He was just lamenting that Yang Xiuzhu was too lucky. He wasn't a good person, so how did he have such a good career? Ning Ziyuan sighed. Master Han praised Yang Xiuzhu greatly. "No, I should call him Attendant Yang now, a 6th rank attendant. He used to be of the same rank as you, but now he's a level above you." Xiao Lulang said carelessly, "It's not like I only found out today that he's going to be promoted. Didn't it matter whether he was promoted sooner or later? Attendant Yang was born as a noble scholar, and it took him 5 years to reach the position of Lord Attendant. For a noble scholar, this was considered fast. Xiao Luleng was different. He was the #1 scholar. As long as he didn't court disaster, his promotion speed would definitely be faster than the Jinshi of the same batch. Reading Attendant Yang's superiority over him was only temporary. Take a look at this. Ning Ziyuan took out an inscription tablet from his chest. Xiao Luleng asked, "Why are you carrying this thing with you?" "No, I want you to take a look at its contents." Ning Ziyuan handed the manuscript of the inscription to Xiao Luleng. "Does it look familiar?" Xiao Luleng said. "I wrote it. What's wrong?" Ning Ziyuan clicked his tongue and said, "Attendant Yang handed it in and said that I guided him for half a day and made him rewrite it 17 times. That's all your credit. Tell me the truth. Did he guide you in a single word?" Xiao Luleng took the inscription tablet and casually placed it on the table. He said casually, "It's just an inscription tablet. You're really not angry?" Ning Ziyuan didn't seem to believe him. "What's there to be angry about?" Xiao Luleng asked. "As long as you're not angry." Ning Ziyuan finally let out a sigh of relief. This kind of thing is commonplace in the bureaucracy. Before you make it big, you don't have the right to speak. You're so young, but you're able to keep your composure. You're much better than I was when I was young. But Xiao Luleng, promise me, even if one day you climb over these people's heads, you won't become like them. Ning Ziyuan was 30 years old. His appearance wasn't outstanding. His face was square and his skin was dark. But at this moment, he looked at Xiao Luleng with eyes that were bright and full of passion and conviction. It almost made one's eyes burn. Xiao Luleng looked at him steadily and nodded. Ning Ziyuan showed a relieved smile. He patted Xiao Luleng on the shoulder and said with great ambition, "Don't think that I come from a humble background, have no background, and have no connections. Occasionally, I dream that one day, I will climb up. I don't need to climb too high. Becoming a 5th-rank Hanlin Academy scholar is my lifelong dream." As he spoke, he clenched his fists, as if he wanted to force out all the contempt he had received along the way from his bones. "I'm thinking, when I have that day, when I'm in charge of the Hanlin Academy, I won't appoint people blindly for money, blindly for connections, blindly for people, blindly for people, blindly for people, blindly for people, and blindly for people to make trouble for me." After the rain, the weather in the capital was pleasant. After court, the officials left the palace in succession and headed to their respective yamens. Grand Tutor Zhuang also left the throne room and chatted with a few colleagues he had good relations with. There was nothing to report to the Empress Dowager today, so he planned to leave the palace. He had only taken a few steps when he was stopped by Grand Tutor Yuan. "Grand Tutor Zhuang." Grand Tutor Zhuang turned around with a bit of surprise. "Grand Tutor Yuan." Grand Tutor Yuan was the #1 official in the imperial cabinet, but the 2 secondary secretaries, the palace secretary, and the 3 imperial cabinet scholars were all Grand Tutor Zhuang's people. That was why it could be said that almost half of the imperial cabinet was under Grand Tutor Zhuang's control. However, the imperial cabinet still respected Grand Tutor Yuan, so his words still carried the greatest weight. However, Grand Tutor Yuan was getting on in years, and wouldn't be able to remain as Grand Tutor for many more years. One day, one of the secondary secretaries would take over his position. When that time came, that would be when Grand Tutor Zhuang completely seized control of the imperial cabinet. On the surface, Grand Tutor Zhuang never clashed with Grand Tutor Yuan, but the two of them never interacted much, so it was unknown why Grand Tutor Yuan stopped him today. Grand Tutor Yuan walked forward and looked towards Grand Tutor Zhuang with an amiable expression. Grand Tutor Zhuang's complexion has become better and better recently. Grand Tutor Zhuang said politely, "It's all thanks to you." Grand Tutor Yuan laughed. "Grand Tutor Zhuang is too polite." Grand Tutor Zhuang said bluntly, "Is there something Grand Tutor Yuan needs me for?" Grand Tutor Yuan said, "It isn't anything major. Yesterday, I saw some of the ancient texts Hanlin Academy sent over. They were restored quite well. There were quite a few places that not even the great scholars of the imperial court could make a decision on, but Hanlin Academy filled them all in. I heard that Prince An also participated in the editing and restoration." Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "Is that so?" I didn't inquire too much about ancient Jade's matters. He really didn't inquire about it. However, there were naturally people who reported it to him. The reason why he said this was to avoid arousing suspicion in front of Grand Tutor Yuan, to express that he didn't interfere with Hanlin Academy. Grand Tutor Yuan didn't mention Northern Yenode on its own, because last night, after burning the midnight oil to read the remaining texts, he discovered that its level of brilliance didn't lose out to Northern Yenode in the slightest. At his age, burning the midnight oil to read was already something from 30 years ago, yet he couldn't stop reading last night. Even though he didn't personally see the original ancient texts, most of this history could be verified from other ancient texts. In other words, in order to restore these ancient texts, one needed a vast amount of historical knowledge as a foundation. Moreover, there weren't any mistakes in the handwriting. Even if it was Grand Tutor Yuan himself, it was hard for him to guarantee that under that type of dry state, he wouldn't make a single mistake. Grand Tutor Yuan still didn't know that Xiao Luleng burned the midnight oil lamp to restore it. If he knew, it would be even more shocking. Grand Tutor Zhuang knew Prince N's whereabouts like the back of his hand, so he naturally knew that he had visited Moonnet Mountain's library. He believed that the reason Grand Tutor Yuan said this was because the ancient texts he obtained were indeed the ones Prince N restored. He understood his own grandson's strength well, so he didn't suspect that there was a misunderstanding. He laughed and said, to be able to contribute a bit to Hanlin Academy, his years of studying weren't in vain. How is it just contributing a bit? It is a great contribution. Grand Tutor Yuan never lightly praised others. Even the young noble who reigned supreme in Radiant Capital didn't receive a single word of praise from him. Grand Tutor Zhuang, you have a good grandson. Grand Tutor Zhuang was simply overwhelmed by the favor. This old picky ghost actually knew how to praise others? He suppressed the excitement at the bottom of his heart, cupping his hands. Grand Tutor Yuan praises me too much. Grand Tutor Yuan released a laugh, asking, I heard that Grand Tutor Zhuang's grandson still hasn't discussed marriage. Grand Tutor Zhuang stared blankly. At the end of the 5th month, Hanlin Academy held an examination. Among the scholars, Feng Lin and Lin Qingye were respectively ranked 4th and 5th from the bottom, while Du Ruhan squeezed into the top 9. Grand Tutor Yuan's legitimate grandson, Yuan Yu, was originally ranked 1st in the scholar examination. This time he performed abnormally, falling to 5th place. The composers and editors didn't rank their results together with them. After all, the examination questions were different. Xiao Luleng was ranked 7th, Ning Ziyuan was ranked 6th, and 1st place was Prince and Ning Ziyuan came to find Xiao Luleng, saying quietly, That's impossible. I clearly made so many mistakes in my math. You didn't get a single question wrong. How could I possibly do better than you? Math was the easiest to calculate marks in. Right was right, wrong was wrong, unlike the literary test questions, which were too subjective. Moreover, even in the literary test, Ning Ziyuan was definitely inferior to Xiao Luleng. Needless to say, it was obvious that Xiao Liulong's results had been deliberately suppressed. This kind of internal examination wasn't as strict as the imperial examination. If the imperial examination examinees weren't satisfied with the results, they could go to the yamen or the examination hall to flip through the examination papers. If they still weren't satisfied after reading, they could go to the yamen to complain. If the imperial examination was over, then so be it. They didn't have a chance to defend themselves. Digression. Third watch, do you have a monthly ticket? The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428266/112287763. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 298. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Ning Ziyuan deeply felt sorry for Xiao Lulang. This was his first time in the capital, but it wasn't his first time coming into contact with officialdom. When he was in the local area, he had been a teacher at the prefectural school and had also been a temporary registrar for the county magistrate. He had seen the darkness and strife of officialdom with his own eyes, but he had never expected that the Hanlin Academy, such a clean place, would have such unfair things. In fact, his own life wasn't very smooth, but this kind of unsmoothness was within the normal range. He had no power, no influence, and no background, so he wasn't valued. Xiao Lulang, on the other hand, was deliberately suppressed. Xiao Lulang had a good mentality and didn't break down. If it were someone else, they would have broken down long ago. Ning Ziyuan didn't say anything else. He patted his shoulder and sighed as he left. Xiao Lulang went out to wash his brush. When he came to the ink washing pool, Royal Prince happened to also come here to wash his brush. He didn't need to do it himself. Someone else would do it for him. He was surrounded by a group of colleagues, who all congratulated him. I heard that editor Zhuang got first place. This is called true gold fears no fire. Yes. This time, no one dares to be biased. As they spoke without scruples, they didn't forget to cast meaningful glances at Xiao Lulang. The story of how Xiao Lulang got first place had long been spread in the capital. It was said that he had a face that was 70 to 80% similar to the young Duke of Zhaodu, and that he had won the favor of the young Duke's father and the young Duke's senior brothers. Even his top scorer was deliberately given to him by the emperor in order to suppress the Zhuang family. And the emperor couldn't reach so far into everything. The Hanlin Academy was a place where the emperor's bloodline couldn't reach. As a matter of fact, he showed his true colors in the first Hanlin Academy exam. In fact, don't think that scholars would be more reserved than country shrews. Country shrews only had a loud voice and coarse reasoning, so they couldn't scold people's sore spots. When scholars scolded people, they could cut people's hearts open. Their lips and tongues were as sharp as knives, and each knife drew blood. However, the officials of the Hanlin Academy were not as unscrupulous as the foppish sons of the Imperial College. They cherished their reputation, and would not really block Xiao Lulang here to do anything to him, nor would they deliberately trip him to embarrass him. They would only use their authority to suppress him, or group together to ridicule him and isolate him. Xiao Luolang's expression didn't change much. After washing the brush, he planned to leave. That should be the case. The correct number is 27. After Royal Prince finished explaining the answer to an editor who asked him for advice on arithmetic, he called out to Xiao Lulang, "Wait a moment." Xiao Lulang stopped and looked at him indifferently. "What's the matter?" Royal Prince said, "Hanlin Academy is a place of fair competition. No matter what others say, I hope you understand that strength speaks for itself here. You know how you became the top scorer. Hanlin Academy won't give Marquis Xianping a chance to interfere. You really shouldn't have sided with Marquis Xianping. If he was a general, siding with Marquis Xianping was still acceptable. But he was a scholar. The banker was the tallest tree." Xiao Lulang didn't respond to Royal Prince An's words. He only glanced at the question in the editor's hand and said, 19. After saying that, he calmly left. Royal Prince An frowned. What 19? The editor was studying Royal Prince An's solution, and didn't dare to eavesdrop on their conversation. Royal Prince An walked over and took the question to look at it again. He suddenly realized that he missed a number on the 7th step. The final result of the calculation was, Royal Prince An took the pen and paper and calculated on the paper. 19. How did he know? Had he done this question before? It couldn't be that he just listened to the editor read the question, and then calculated the result in his mind. Impossible. He wasn't that smart. For this kind of huge calculation, an ordinary person would have to calculate on paper for a day. Even the Hanlin Academy scholars who were smarter than ordinary people would have to spend at least an hour. He was exceptionally smart, so he only used a quarter of an hour. But this still required him to write down the complicated and huge calculation steps on paper. And he calculated wrongly. How could Xiao Lulang calculate it correctly using only mental calculation? After his shift, Royal Prince sat on the carriage to return home. He was surprised to find Grand Tutor Zhuang in the carriage. "Grandfather." Royal Prince bowed. "Why are you here?" "I was passing by, so I came to see you," Grand Tutor Zhuang said in a good mood. Ever since Empress Dowager Zhuang sent Zhuang Yueshi home from the palace, Grand Tutor Zhuang hadn't shown such a happy expression for many days. Royal Prince couldn't help but ask, "Grandfather, why are you so happy? Is there a joyous occasion?" Grand Tutor Zhuang looked at him with admiration and couldn't hide his smile. "It's indeed a joyous occasion." There weren't many things that could make his grandfather happy. Royal Prince looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang in confusion. He didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling in his heart. Grand Tutor Zhuang finally stopped keeping him in suspense and smiled at Royal Prince. "Grand Tutor Yuan is interested in you." Grand Tutor Yuan. Royal Prince was shocked. Grand Tutor Yuan was a prominent figure in Zhao country. He was the #1 assistant minister in the cabinet. Why would he suddenly be interested in him? It wasn't that Royal Prince looked down on himself and felt that he didn't have the ability. It was just that his reputation had spread out long ago. If Grand Tutor Yuan wanted him, he would have done so long ago. If it was because of this imperial examination, he only got second place. Above him was Xiao Lulang, the new top scholar. Grand Tutor Zhuang smiled. "When you went to Mount Yuluo to organize the library, he saw the ancient books you organized and was very satisfied with you." Royal Prince was also very satisfied with the ancient books he organized. He had read a lot of books since he was young and never slacked on his studies in Qin country. He was also quite good at history. He didn't organize many ancient books that day, but he was confident that he organized them the best. Grand Tutor Yuan loves to study ancient books, Grand Tutor Zhuang said. "I see." Royal Prince was enlightened. No wonder he suddenly liked him. "Then does he plan on taking me as his disciple? It would be great if he could take Grand Tutor Yuan as his master." Although they were all considered the emperor's disciples after passing the Jinshi exam, no one would dislike having such an excellent master. In his opinion, only 4 people in the 6 countries were qualified to be his master. One was the deceased Elder Feng, one was Yan country's layman Han Shan, one was Zhao country's Sir Lian Yun, and the last was Grand Tutor Yuan. Even his 4th uncle Zhuang Xianji wasn't qualified. As for Chancellor Hua, he didn't get along with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Royal Prince naturally didn't like him that much. "Not a disciple, but a grandson-in-law," Grand Tutor Zhuang said. Royal Prince frowned. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "He wants to betroth you to his granddaughter, who grew up in the Taoist temple. That girl's talent is quite good. Grand Tutor Yuan values her, but she's a woman and can't inherit Grand Tutor Yuan's legacy. If you really marry her, you'll be no different from Grand Tutor Yuan's disciple." How was there no difference? There was a generation difference. Royal Prince didn't say this. His marriage wasn't up to him to decide. However, if he didn't marry the girl he liked, then wouldn't it be the same no matter who he married? After Attendant Yang was promoted, he was busy teaching the scholars in Hanlin Academy, and temporarily didn't have time to make things difficult for Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang finished his duty on time. He packed his things and left Hanlin Academy. As soon as he left, Editor Tsun also came out of his office. He had been hiding from Xiao Lulang for the past 2 days. Firstly, he felt guilty for scheming against Xiao Lulang. Secondly, he was observing when Xiao Lulang would confront and complain to Attendant Yang. Xiao Lulang headed west after leaving Hanlin Academy. He clearly remembered that Xiao Lulang always headed east. Could it be that he really went to complain to Attendant Yang? The west happened to be the direction of Hanlin Academy. Xiao Lulang did go to Hanlin Academy, but he didn't go to Attendant Yang. Instead, he went to find Feng Lin and Lin Qingya. Last night, he sorted out some astronomy and mathematics questions that should be suitable for their current progress. Sim Wei followed him sneakily. When he saw Xiao Lulang heading in the direction of Hanlin Academy, his heart jumped to his throat. However, he did not expect that Xiao Lulang would be stopped by someone on the way. It was a woman. The woman was dressed beautifully, her eyebrows were delicate, and her hair was full of pearl hairpins. Although she wore a veil, it was still difficult to hide her charm. Editorson only took one look, and felt his eyes pop out of their sockets. The woman didn't go forward. It was the young maid beside her who walked over and said something to Xiao Lulang. From Cinwei's point of view, he could only see Xiao Liulang's back. He didn't know what Xiao Liulang's expression was, and he couldn't hear their voices. Then Xiao Lulang left. The young maid and the woman slightly bowed to Xiao Lulang. Digression. Today I went to my relative's house to have a drink. Everyone was playing cards, only I was typing. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1122265966. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. That you're tuning into the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.